Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the European Racing Series GT3 Championship as brought to you on Assetto Corsa Competizione, available on PC and next generation console. But our focus is in particular on the PC variant of the game, and it is the case in the 6th season of the GT3 Championship. Tonight, it is the penultimate round of the 7-round calendar. That's right, it's round number 6, and we are in France for the Paul Ricard circuit, and we'll talk more about the circuit specifically in a short order. But before we do, let's get through some quick admin before we get underway. Starting off with our schedule for tonight, our times in British summertime, that's BST or UTC +1. It is the case that in just under 5 minutes time we'll begin underway with the 15-minute qualifying session to determine our grid order for this round of racing, and after that we'll be heading straight into the race. 65 minutes of racing action with an all-important pit stop thrown in there for good measure, and we'll be going racing from 7:15 tonight. In the commentary booth you have myself, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain Spit, depending on what media you follow me on, and tonight's broadcast is being brought to you live on the official European Racing Series Twitch channel. It is the case if you go to twitch.tv and look up European Racing Series, you'll be able to tune in there, and do pass the link round to friends and family. It is the case, the more the merrier, as our drivers go racing tonight in the series that is sponsored by both GPORTAL and SimGrid, and it's only fair that we very quickly come to our supported sponsors for this series. We start off, of course, with GPORTAL. And it is the case that for GPORTAL, with game servers from GPORTAL, you can rely on an absolute premium product for the best hardware, a clear web interface, and fair prices. You have the full choice of more than 90 different games and over 14 different server locations worldwide, and GPORTAL makes no compromises in the areas of hardware, connection, and routing, offering absolute top pings at reasonable prices. GPORTAL game servers are online immediately and offer reliable denial of service protection by Correro. And it is the case that no matter which game you choose, you can always switch to another game thanks to GPORTAL's Game Cloud principle. Depending on the game, you have up to 150 different setting options for your game server, and if you have any questions or technical problems, GPORTAL offer you comprehensive support via phone, ticket, forum, wiki, and email. And if you're interested in hosting your own game server today, then why not go to www.g-portal.com. That website again, g-portal.com, for further information. And here's the case, of course, very grateful here at the European Racing Series to GPORTAL, and we are running this series on their servers, and indeed we continue our long-standing collaboration with the firm, and we look forward to going racing tonight on their highly stable servers. But we come from one of our sponsors to the other, and that is the SimGrid. And well, who are the SimGrid, I hear you ask? Well, the SimGrid is a place for amateur and professional sim racers to compete against fellow drivers in leagues and endurance events for Assetto Corsa Competizione, and more recently expanding into the world of R-Factor 2 and also iRace, and I also believe Formula 1 2022, unless I'm very much mistaken. But the SimGrid is the place where you can get involved in all different series, whether they're one-off series, where it's the case you've only got 1 or 2 races on the calendar, or entire major championships ranging all the way from the amateurs up to the professional esports championships as hosted by Coach Dave Academy. It is the case SimGrid has got racing for everyone, and it is the place to be, and also recently formed a partnership with Low Fuel Motorsport to provide daily racing on Assetto Corsa Competizione, available on PC, but the series extends to the console versions as well. And if you do want to know more, do go to www.thesimgrid.com for further information. That website again, www.thesimgrid.com, and we're very grateful to continue our partnership with the SimGrid, who have provided us with the hosting platform for organising this series from its initial advertisement all the way through to the management of the final standings, and also providing server details to our participating drivers. But it is the case that as we now make our way from our sponsors to our calendar, we can see here that we have had 5 rounds already. Last week it was the case we went to Spa-Francorchamps for another round of frantic racing action. The race concluding just after 75% of the racing distance due to some technical difficulties. But here's the case, we are back today with round number 6 at Paul Ricard. It is the 13th of July 2022, and with only 2 rounds left, including tonight, the season finale in a week's time at the Nürburgring circuit in Germany on the 20th of July 2022. It is the case that now the tensions are starting to bubble to the surface. We are looking at our major contenders in the overall championship. We're also looking at those trying to break the way into the top 10 or at least the top 20, and it all now comes down to these final 2 rounds. And also with a drop score in effect, you can imagine our drivers will be looking to do well at Paul Ricard tonight. And a controversial circuit, you could argue. Many would call it a rather fancy car park, but some would say it's one of the best circuits out there. It's open to opinion. And well, before we come to talk about the circuit specifically, we must look to our championship standings and give you a quick recap. So looking at our championship standings, starting with the top 10, it is the case that Konstantin Soldatov leads going into tonight on 134 points, 20 clear of second place driver Maxim Kamizyuk, and it is the case that the Audi R8 driver there only 1 point ahead of the fast charging Vasily Anufriev, who is a further a point ahead of fourth place driver Boris Garifulin. But you can see there is the case that second through to fourth are very closely contested, all trying to make themselves the top contender to go after Soldatov, and will we see a shake-up of the order there tonight, or will it be the case that Soldatov is able to further break away? Oleg Pichek in P5 there, the best of the rest on 104 points, only 1 point ahead of Mateusz Kitsia there in P6, and then rounding off our top 10, it's Mateusz Kaczynski, Jonas Forks, Frederick Gutman, and Martin Ulrich. Outside of the top 10, but not to be forgotten about, we have Lukas Virkov, Max Hohiger, Vasi Grama, Maximilian Dzizik, Oliver Geher, and Dean Vella to make our top 16. And then we have Fabrizio Campanella, Manuel Catalano, Oprah Reres, and Nelson Abranhosa, who complete our top 20. And we won't go through all 60 of our participating drivers, or just shy of 60 participating drivers, but also to cover some of our drivers all the way down to at the end of the top 30. And there's the case we have Stefan Kraling there in P21 on 44 points, just ahead of Bernard Wonas, and then P23, Andrei Siokan, followed by Paolo Tempera, who has retired from this series recently, and also Cyprian Delasescu there in P25, also hand retired. But then we have in P26, Alex Anash, followed by Ben Millard, Dan Clays, Adrian Privu, and then in 30th, Milton Steelves, and of course for that third place finish in the season opener, and having to retire immediately after due to personal circumstances. Well, that is our top 30 in the standings, and now we do look to our circuit for tonight. Whereas the case will be going racing at Circuit Paul Ricard in the Le Castellet region of around Le Castellet in the region of Var in France. And this circuit made up of 13 corners, as you can see from the circuit map provided to us by Human Body Piloter 5, the user on wikipedia.org, is a circuit which is considered to have a little something of everything. It has an absolutely huge back straight. It has quite an extended start-finish straight. It has a multitude of sweeping corners in the latter half of the lap, and at the start of the lap it has some very heavy braking zones, particularly the run from turn 2 to 3 all the way through turns 4 and 5, and then the circuit opens up in the run to the back straight through 6 and 7, and it's the sweepers of turns 8 through to 12, followed up by a very heavy braking zone for the final corner. And that means it is the case there's no perfect setup at this circuit. Our drivers will have to compromise on their setups to get the most out of the car, perhaps sacrificing some straight line speed for cornering or vice versa, and that's what makes it such a tricky circuit and why it's perhaps not the most enjoyed out of those on the calendar. But we'll have to wait and see whether our drivers do enjoy it or not tonight. As for our rules, just to give you a quick refresh of the rules, in general, the balance of performance for this series is the 2021 variant, as provided a Assetto Corsa Competizione by Kuno Simulation. In qualifying, return to garage is permitted, so long as it's used in a safe manner. In the race, meanwhile, there's one mandatory pit stop, which will require drivers to change tyres, but the mandatory pit stop shall fall within a 15-minute pit window. That means that our drivers must come into the pits at that point. If they don't, then their pit stop will not be valid, and they could be disqualified from the race. But without further ado, let's head to the live pictures, as qualifying has just got underway. Well, as we do look to circuit side now with our drivers heading on around, it is the case here. We can see it Konstantin Soldatov making his way through the last couple of corners, but he's not going to be the first driver to go on to a flying lap here. That will be the Team Bulldogs Ukraine driver of Oleg Pichik, as he makes his way across that timeline onto the first flying lap of this session. And just behind him there we do have, I believe that is Mateusz Kaczynski, who is following him on in. And well, we'll have to wait and see whether the two trip over one another as they make their way through the opening corner and into turn number 2. But I do think this is a bit of an odd positioning from Kaczynski in fact that's not Kaczynski, my apologies. It is the case that our time tower is not quite representative of where all our drivers are in relation to one another on the circuit. Well, pitching behind him, there's the number 97 car of what is Frederick Gutman, and we can see that Gutman really putting pressure on the Audi driver, and I wonder if this is to try and get some better track positioning later on in the qualifying session as they're making their way around on this first flying lap. But as you can see here, as we gradually see the drivers make their way onto the back straight in that long run all the way down. 15 minutes sounds like a long time in qualifying, but with the lap time coming in just around the region of 2 minutes, that's not too many laps available here. You're looking at about 5 to 6 fast laps in the end, and our drivers will have it all to do as we continue to see The driver of Pitching making his way down that back straight as he comes charging on down here. Just to let you know, we can see the Twitch chat, so if you are tuning in on the Twitch tonight, it is the case. Don't be shy, feel free to say hi. Do let us know who you're cheering on, who your expectations are on with regards to drivers and how well they can do here. As we can see up in the top right corner, our little weather forecast there. It is the case we do have some rain on the forecast, it would seem, albeit how that rain will come and fall, we'll have to wait and find out. But it does look as though it is on its way, the rain. And if so, that could really shake things up over the course of the proceedings, as we do see here Chick making his way now down towards through turn 11 and in towards turn number 12. And well, he has had one of those laps which he's been pressured to deliver, given the fact how close behind him Gutman is, and the BMW M4 driver here really getting close, and I think he might be kicking himself and positioning himself so close to the back of the Audi driver as they make their way out of the final corner and to the timing line for that first flying lap. It comes on in, and well, it's Gutman who is 1/10 faster, which we'd expect, but I think Gutman there has compromised himself quite heavily. And then we have Stefan Kraling coming across the line. Well, he's at 1.2 seconds off the pace, and I think he's going to be demoted quite a way down the order as he rolls his way through turn number 1 and into 2. But as he comes right on through here, we do look from Stefan Kraling to a driver who's making his way around on his first flying lap at the moment. Indeed, I think one of our last drivers to make their way onto their first flying lap, and that is Nelson Abrinosa here, the Team Abbey Racing driver, charging down that back straight and into the right-hand kink of turn number 8 as he flows on through in the Aston Martin Racing V8 Vantage. And this is one of those cars which we talked about, we did see earlier on in the season, which doesn't do too well in qualifying typically, but does better in the race by comparison. It does have some very strong characteristics, with regards to its race pace, and as he rolls his way through turn number 10 and into 11 is the case here. He'll be looking to position himself somewhere within the top 10, most likely the lower portion of the top 10 or just outside of it, and he'll be trying to make that ground by the fact the car does look after its tyres very well. Not as good as the Bentley, although it is the case that the Bentley recently receiving a balance of performance adjustment, it should be noted. After it was very strong in its tyres, particularly in hot conditions, but it's not too hot here today at the Paul Ricard circuit at Le Castellet. It is the case, 23 degrees ambient temperature, that's in degrees centigrade, 30 degrees track temperature at the moment, and we are expecting, should the rain come, that track temperature may dip quite significantly. The ambient we're not sure about yet, but it will be the case that with rain on the forecast, the weather could definitely change the complexion of the track, as we see Abrinosa there on the first flying lap going P16, but we've still got a few laps to come in. I think a number of invalidated laps, as we do see here Max O'Higler coming down towards what is, I believe, turn number 12 here as he rolls his way in the Mosquito Motorsport BMW M4, the German driver, and as he comes on round his case, that livery looking very lovely indeed. And indeed, I would not want that Mosquito Motorsport machine near me. It could be going for a bit of blood. Unfortunately, he'll be going for points here today, not blood. But that Mosquito on the side, indeed. A very nasty insect, the Mosquito. And will he be able to leave a sting tonight as he crosses the line there with his first lap on the board? And that is P10 there. We're 154.947. Not a bad lap to start off with, but definitely still a lot on the table as we make our way now into the final 10 minutes of this qualifying session. But currently, that pole position sitting with Oleg Pitchik as he makes his way through turn number 13. Well, actually, that's not turn number 13, my apologies, that's turn number 5, into turn 6 and 7 in short order. And the Team Bullish Ukraine driver here, well, he's currently the fastest, but we've got somebody going just as fast, and that's Konstantin Soldatov from BMW Sim Racing, who, as he makes his way through 6 and into 7 here, you can see the Russian driver coming out of the left-hander of turn number 7 and looking just as fast and menacing as he heads down this back straight. And as we've said before, given the length of this straight, those drivers who've optimised their cars and their setups for straight line speed will gain majorly here, but they will feel that compromise later in the lap when they go through the sweepers, starting off with a high-speed sweeper of turn at number 8. Very shortly, we will ride on board with one of our drivers who goes onto a lap here, as we see right now Soldatov in the 911 car pushing on, and as he flows through turn number 8, making it look absolutely straightforward. I can tell you, when they're going through that corner in excess of 130 miles an hour, it's not the case that's as straightforward as that. There's a lot of work going into balance the car, as meanwhile into the pits has come Boris Garafulian. As I look out my commentary box window, he's currently P3 in the Honda NSX Evo, run the Evo 2 electronics package, of course. And meanwhile, as we see Soldatov here rolling his way through turn number 9 and into 10, The BMW Sim Racing driver at the moment is purple on this lap versus Pitchick's time, albeit it's only by a small margin. It's about half a tenth, if that. He's got a bit of traffic in front of him. That's the number 3 car in front of what is, I believe that's Steve Taylor. And as they make their way to the timeline, will Soldatov be able to improve here? Can he take provisional pole? He crosses the line. It's not enough there. It's the case he had to back out in the end of 54.055 versus Pitchick on a 54.007. Well, it is close. You can imagine he'll jump to the pits and then go again. As meanwhile, we look to the 111 car here of Bebev as the AF course driver rolling his way through what is turn number 9. And as he heads on through and up towards 10, the Swiss driver definitely at the bottom end of the spectrum right now. And I think trying to find that momentum as he rolls his way on through turn number 10. And as he comes through the left-hander here and now makes his way into the right at turn number 11, we do look from him to our number 314 driver just up the road of Adrian Piervu here from PG Motors, who in turn currently in P23 having a difficult qualifying session as he makes his way out of the final corner. He's a whole second up on his previous best, so this is an improving lap. And as he heads that timeline, will it be for Piervu as he heads across? It's P22 now. He gains by a second. He's now 2.4 seconds off of the fastest lap in the session. But with 6 minutes on the clock and we're still waiting to see if anybody can dip their toes into the 53s. We look a bit further afield and we look to Boris Garafulin here, who has come out the pits, and the Russian driver making his way through turn number 11, and very shortly will be riding on board with Garafulin for a lap around the Paul Ricard circuit. And as he heads into turn number 12, we now see him make his way into 13. We jump on board. It's Boris Garafulin to take us around now for an onboard flying lap. So he makes his way out of the final corner here, looking to get on the power as soon as possible and head down towards turn number 1. You see him bringing the car over to the right hand side here in preparation for the opening left-hander. And as he goes up through the gearbox, up into 5th gear and getting ready for his brake marker, looking to the right there, looking for the 100-meter board, and just after it, a double downshift to 3rd, then to 2nd. And as he rolls his way through 1, bring the car together, upshifting mid-apex there through turn number 2, and using that to rotate the car over the crest apex curve. Before now heading down towards turn number 3, looking for his brake marker, that 100-meter board just before it, and coming all the way down to 2nd gear. Into left-hander at turn number 4 he goes, and as he does, balancing the car on the curb before rolling it into 5. Perhaps the slowest corner of the circuit, turn number 5, and as he exits in 1st gear, parent up through the gearbox with a lift off there through turn number 6 and a dab of the brakes to rotate the car before now going full throttle through 7 and on to the back straight here. And now it is a very long straight. He gets to rest. He now gets to think about the fact the lap is going to change its nature from what is a very heavy set of braking zones and quite a low average speed to a much high average speed for the rest of the lap as he heads all the way down towards where's the king of 8 here, and we'll listen in as he makes his way through the fastest corner on the circuit. Beautifully controlled there with a dab of brakes and down to 5th gear into turn number 8 and carrying all the speed before straight line under braking into turn number 9. And as he brings the car back towards the apex of turn 9, the very late apex there, it's very, very difficult to spot initially. You have to just remember it's there. And as he comes through turn number 10, now down in 2nd gear, bringing the car on around, battling with the steering wheel there. You can see the oversteer trying to kick the car around excessively, but he brings it under control. And now charging through the right-hander 11 before straight line braking all the way down to 2nd gear for turn number 12. Another very late apex, we will ride that exit curving, and as he heads the apex curving as he comes into turn number 13, another very slow corner, almost as slow as turn number 5, down to 1st gear and accelerating up through the gearbox. It's a nice lap here. What's it going to be for Garafulin as he crosses that timeline? Well, it's not as good as his best. It's almost as good as his previous best, only what was 800ths off there of what he's previously done at 54.120, and the Russian driver's still got more to do as he makes his way through turn at number 1. But meanwhile, we do see that Frederick Gutman here is now only 3,000ths off of taking that pole position off of Pitchick, and it is the case nobody has yet to get into those 53 still, but the Illuma Racing driver definitely trying to deliver a faster lap as he heads through turn number 7. But meanwhile, Konstantin Soldatov is matching the best lap of this session so far. And as he heads down towards the timeline here, will the BMW Sim Racing go provisional pole? He's about to cross the line very shortly, and as he does, it's not enough. It is the case. He's still out there, just not able to get the exit out of turn 13. That's where he's losing the time. It's in the low-speed corners in that BMW M4. He just hasn't got the acceleration out the corners, it would seem, to be able to match up for the majority of the lap. He is purple, but as soon as we see him make his way through turns 12 and 13, that fastest lap starts to fall away from him here, and Soldatov has still got work to do, but the top 3 separated by only 0.05 of a second, if that. That shows you how close it is, and we have now only got 2.5 minutes left of this session as they make their way around. The rain has not quite made it to the circuit during qualifying, as we see Soldatov there deciding to cut the course, and that will be to make sure he gets around and gives himself as much track position as possible, heading down the back straight here. Well, that's a bit of a cheeky way to do it, but he's decided to do it. He's not happy with the lap he was going on to, and meanwhile, one of our major contenders in the championship, Vasily Onufriev, only managing P9 right now, and the Team WRT machine running the Valentino Rossi colours there of the number 46 machine, which many of you will have seen take to the real world circuits in the GT World Challenge. And as we see here, Onufriev making his way up through 2 and down towards 3 right now. The number 46 driver definitely feeling the pinch with regards to this qualifying session. The fact he is 4.5 tenths off the pole position, and well, you think that's quite a close margin, and then what you come to realise is the fact, well, it's not a close margin when between himself and Pitchik on pole, he's got another 7 drivers, and that is a staggering number of drivers to have within the space of less than half a second a time. But that's how close this field is, and why this championship continues to extract the best out of its participants, as we see Onufriev making his way down the backstraight. Pitchik pulling off the road there and staying well clear. I think it's the case he might be actually boxing now, given the fact that he won't have enough time to go onto a lap. In fact, he's jumped to the pit, but as we see here, Onufriev making his way down the straight, and is he on an improving lap? Not currently, as he heads all the way down and into the right-hander very shortly of turn number 8, and as he heads on into the zone here, will we see anything coming through? I don't think it'll be the case that he's going to get it wrong, but the Audi behind does get it wrong and clips one of the bollards there for track limits. But Onufriev right now definitely keeping it well composed here, and that Audi R8 Evo 2 looking very stable as he rolls his way out of turn number 9 and up towards turn number 10, and as he heads through the long left-hander here, getting himself set for that late apex before returning the car to the right-hander of 11. Well, now what will it be for these final 2 corners? I can tell you at the moment he's not going green, and as he makes his way through, I feel, oh goodness me, he throws the car to the right there, and it's the case, Onufriev getting it wrong and hits the wall. Well, that is going to be the end of his qualifying session as a yellow flag is waved there. I'm not sure what happened. It's almost as if the car just suddenly snapped on him. I think it might be brake failure or steering wheel failure, but regardless, his qualifying session is over, as meanwhile, well, he's been trying for a number of laps now to try and take that pole position off of Pitchik. It is the case that every time he's not been able to, and right now the Russian of Soldatov, as he makes his way down the back straight here, he's currently matching Pitchik for time. And Gutman doing the same as well, as he's just gone into a lap as Frederick Gutman. So we'll have to wait to see his lap a little bit later on, as we're hearing that Vela has crossed the line. P7, that is Dean Vela, P7 at the moment. We'll have to wait to see if he gets demoted by anybody improving. I think it's going to be a tall order for many to improve. Most drivers now have either completed their session or are in the pit. But Soldatov rolls his way through turn number 10. He is 2 attempts up currently, just 2 attempts as he heads down towards turn number 12, but this is the corner that's always caught him out, and as he makes his way up through the left-hander of 12, again he's losing time. You can't see it on your screen, but we can see it on our timing screens. It is the case, he's lost time there, and as he rolls through the final corner, will he be able to steal that pole position away? It's going to be very close as he heads to the line. I don't think it's enough, however, and in fact, no, it's not. It's the case he'll be starting P3 at most, as meanwhile, Frederick Gutman is still out there and trying to put in a lap. Now, where is the number 1 driver of Kamazuk by comparison? Well, he's going to be the last driver to deliver a lap in this session, so we've still got a bit of uncertainty as to who will be on those front 2 rows, but we do know that it's the case that we're going to be seeing Soldatov or Garifulin on that 2nd row as a maximum. And as Gutman rolls his way through turn number 9 here, the number 97 driver continuing to push on as he rolls his way up into the left-hander of turn number 10, and as he comes on through, it is the case that Gutman, well, he's doing everything within his power to extract the momentum out of the car, and it's the case that right now he's not the fastest out there, but I can tell you somebody who's going incredibly fast right now, and that is Maxim Kamazuk, currently in P5. We'll cut to him very shortly as Gutman makes his way through the final corner, but I think these last couple of corners have caught him out here, and the clouds are over the circuit. There's rain incoming, but he's going to pull into the pits. The only other driver who can steal that pole position away will be the Audi R8 driver here from Benzino and Maxim Kamazuk, and as he makes his way to the line, it was a compromised end to his lap with traffic, and he's lost out on pole. He's P5 in the end. It is Pitchik who's taken pole position at the close, and well, it's the case, I think, for Kamazuk with that BMW BMW M4. He had to deal with the number 24 car there of what was, unless I'm very much mistaken, Andrei Savescu. He's lost out at the end. So it's Oleg Pitchik who is your pole position starter for the purposes of round number 6 here today at Circuit Paul Ricard, as we now get ready to go racing. But what a close qualifying session, and indeed I think he'll be very grateful for the fact he managed to get pole by 3 thousandths of a second. But Soldatov, Garifin and Kremzu all showing at certain points they were the faster drivers around here. Pitchik's found that right balance in qualifying. Can he find the same balance in the race over 65 minutes of racing? Only time will tell. And there you can see P6, P7, Fawkes and Vella separated by only 2 thousandths of a second. Jonas Fawkes and then Dean Vella here. It is the case, the two Audi drivers going very strong, and that Audi R8 Evo 2 looking very good at Paul Ricard, it has to be said. But we do have in that top 10 as well a couple of other cars as we now get ready to go racing. But without further ado, let's take you down through the grid one by one, and of course we start off from the very front row. So as the case, as they qualified onto this grid for the purposes of round number 6, the 65-minute race at Paul Ricard in Season 6 of the GT3 Championship hosted by the European Racing Series. Oleg Pitchik taking pole position for Team Bollers Ukraine, and he is joined on the front row, the Ukrainian driver, by Frederick Gutman here from Germany from Luma Racing in the BMW M4 in a close shootout separated by 3 thousandths of a second. P3 starting off our second row, Konstantin Soldatov from BMW Sim Racing, and the Russian is joined by Boris Garifulin, the Russian driver there in the Honda NSX Evo, who will start P4. Behind them on row number 3, we have Maxim Kremzuk, the Ukrainian driver from Benzino, losing out at the end of qualifying, and I think he'll feel as though he's got the race pace to win. He'll be starting P5, joined by Jonas Fawkes there, the German driver starting P6 alongside him. Then in P7, we have Dean Vella from GT Omega RPM Esports, and he will be joined on the fourth row by Mateusz Kozinski here, the Simulation Esport GT3 driver from Poland, starting P8. To complete our top 10 on that fifth row, we have Vasily Anufriev, the Team WRT driver from Russia, and being joined by Stefan Hildebrandt from Germany, the Lamborghini Huracan GT3 Evo driver, putting in a great qualifying session and getting the Huracan up there into the top 10. Well done to him from VRL Performance. P11, we have Vasiv Grama, the Romanian driver there, being joined by what is on that row, Oliver Gaher, as it is the case the Digital Racing Squad driver has the McLaren of Gaher alongside him from Mosquito Motorsport, and the German driver will be looking to go fast in the McLaren 720S. And then behind them on row number 7, we have Martin Ulrich in the Bentley Continental GT3 2018 machine, and the Dane from McLeod Racing Team will be joined by P14 driver Lukas Virkov, the German driver in the Audi R8 Evo 2 from Von Deher Racing. Behind them, we have Stefan Kraling from Germany, P15, the Mosquito Motorsport driver, being joined by Max Oliger from Germany in Mosquito Motorsport's machine, P16, the BMW M4 driver. On row number 9, we have Andrei Savescu, and the PGM Esports driver will be joined on that row by Alex Anash, the PG Motors driver starting P18 from Romania. And then we have Simone Calurso, the Italian driver from Flat Out Sim Racing in the Mercedes AMG Evo, and he is joined on that row by Andrei Siokan, P20. That is your top 20, with the Digital Racing Squad driver from Romania completing the top 20. P21, we have Adrian Apirvu from Romania, the PG Motors driver in the BMW M4, being joined by Nelson Abrinhosa, the Team Abbey Racing driver starting P22 in the Aston Martin Racing V8 Vantage. Then on row number 12, we have Beb F, I believe that may be an abbreviation for a full name, and the F course driver in the Ferrari 488 Evo from Switzerland, being joined by Steve Taylor, the JP Motorsport driver from the United States of America. And then on the final row, last but not least, P25, is Dustin Bonds here in the Revo Racing Team Audi R8 Evo 2 from the Netherlands. But as we look from here to the front of the field, they're already starting to pull away, and it is the case that Oleg Pitchik takes us around for the manual double file formation lap as he makes his way all the way around. And it is the case they'll be line astern initially, giving each driver ample space to try and warm up the tyres, get that brake temperature as well. But then as they make their way towards the end of this lap, particularly the last 4 to 5 corners, that's when we'll see the field start to bunch up, and then we'll be to this Ukrainian driver to take us away from pole position for the 65 minutes of racing. But indeed, it is going to be close tonight, and well, how will it all play out? That's what only time will tell, as we do look to Martin Ulrich here as the McLeod Racing Team driver making his way down through the right-hander of what is turn number 3 there. And as we ride on board on the dashboard here, it is the case when you're making your way through these low-speed corners, there's not really any space to practice getting that tyre temperature and do a little bit of brake temperature work, some brake dragging, we like to call it, where the driver's got the throttle down, but it's also keeping the brakes active slightly in order to get that brake temperature as they now make the way onto the back straight. This is where we'll see a lot of our drivers now do quick spurts of acceleration and stamp on the brakes in order to get that brake temperature up, and also a bit of side-to-side weaving to increase the temperature in the sidewall of the tyre and just build that temperature overall. We're not too far away from going racing now, and it is the case as they all make their way down the straight. This is the last major opportunity for our drivers to get that temperature into the car, into the tyres, into the brakes, and then it will be from there. We go through the sweepers of 8, 9 and 10, and the field will begin to bunch up, and towards the back, Nelson Abramhoster there, the Aston Martin Racing Advantage V8 driver. What can he do from towards the back of the field? And given the fact that car will have the strengths in the race, it won't in qualifying. We've seen that articulated here, and also keep an eye on that weather radar in the top right corner of your screen. It is the case that within the next 10 minutes we are looking at rain potentially arriving here at the French circuit, and well, it will go away after 30 minutes. That's what our forecast is. We've got quite a bit of high weather variability, and as they all now make the way down towards turn number 8, you can see how the field's stacking up, although Ole Pitchik being given space, and then Gutmann behind him really bringing everybody together as they head on down. A lot of weaving as well in that midfield as we see the Benzino driver comes going past the camera. Our drivers taking it nice and slowly here, really dragging out this formation lap as much as they can for the simple reason they want to try and get the car set. And with the fact that we do have rain on the forecast very shortly within the next 10 minutes, and that 10 minutes not going to be falling within the pit window, which is the 15-minute window around the halfway mark of the race. If you take 65 minutes and divide it by 2, that's 32.5 minutes, and then 7.5 minutes either side. Well, you get the picture. It's the case that pit window will, if my maths is correct, it will open at what will be the 25-minute complete mark, and it will close at the 40 minutes of the race complete mark. That rain is going to fall and pose the question, does a driver dare to stay out on dry and slick tyres, or do they come into the pits with wet tyres? And it may be the case that they only run them for a brief while. Well, there's going to be all that to decipher and more as we look to the helicam once again, and now you can see it's the case that they make the way through turn number 10 and up into 11. All of our drivers now coming together here, and well, we are only moments away from going racing as the grid is formed. The manual double file formation start is about to get rolling as it heads through turn number 12 and into 13, and it will be to Ole Pitchik from Ukraine to take us to the green as he emerges from the final corner. And as it's go for all of our drivers here, round number 6 of the GT3 Championship is underway. As Ole Pitchik gets a good start here with Frederick Gutmann already under a huge amount of pressure as we see Gareth Fulling there going up the inside into turn number 1. Then it goes in way too hot and it causes an incident on the opening lap here as we see Gutmann takes evasive action, but so many drivers here having to take to the runoff area as they make their way through 2 and down towards 3. Oh goodness, we've got a rejoin there of an Audi that's gone wayward. I think that may have been a Forks, and there's even more contact there as we see a bit further back. Well, that is, I think that's Grammer who's gone off track. There's been contact with another driver, and here's the rain already as it makes its way across the circuit. My goodness, and on what is effectively slick tyres that haven't got full temperature yet. All dramas kicking off, and even more dramas coming with the rain coming over what is turns 4 and 5, and we're not even a lap into this race, and that is going to severely hit everybody as they now make their way onto the back straight for the simple reason they're trying to get the temperature into the tyres, and well, that's the worst possible place the rain could have come in the race as they make their way down the back straight. But my goodness, Vassi Grammer has had to be taken to the pits, he's had to be towed to the pits, with so many drivers losing out, including Stephen Hildebrand, who gained a lot only to lose on out as he battles here. Ole Pitchik, and our pole position driver has dropped all the way to the back of the field as well. But meanwhile, we look up towards the front here, and it is the case as they roll their way through turns 8 and 9. And Dean Vella here has taken the lead of this race in unexpected fashion, but you can see with the rain falling, it's only light rain, but still it's making it almost a tiptoeing exercise as we see Vinasili and Ufriev there up the inside of Zvirkov for P3 as they make their way into the braking zone now for turn number 10. He's defending, and behind we've got Gutmann who's trying to find his way into this fight. Now, will we see anybody react immediately and come into the pit on the basis that this rain is going to last for some time, or will they dare to stay out there? So we've got Gareth Fulling already with a 15-second penalty, and I do believe that our stewards, we do have live stewards of the race in here, that has been doled out by our stewards already. Our stewards have got a lot of work to do, and they're only at the end of the first lap. Will we see a max exodus to the pits? No, we don't. So we continue going racing. It's Dean Bella who leads after one lap ahead of Maxim Komenczuk by 5 tenths of a second. Then in P3 we've got Vasily Onufriev here just ahead of Svirkov in P4. Fredrik Gutman P5. And well, it is the case that Svirkov going up the inside to outside here through turns 1 and 2. Versus Onufriev, and Onufriev they're really struggling through turn number 1, just going too deep into the corner. And Svirkov gaining the places off the road there. That is a Geher, as we see the German driver for the Mosquito Motorsport team in the McLaren 720S getting it wrong out of turn number 2. He's had to take to the runoff area. He drops all the way down, but heavy on the brakes, and there's contact with Oliger as they make the way. That's not Oliger, my apologies. That is Anash who gets ahead just about as they make the way through turns 4 and 5 here. But you can see that all out of sequence with the rain being most concentrated towards the opening portion of the lap. Our drivers are having to tiptoe the way on around, and this is very difficult stuff as they all make the way through the left-hander of turn number 7. And well, my goodness, we couldn't have predicted it started like this as we see the Italian driver Simone Caluso here, the Flat Sim Racing driver in the Mercedes. He's going hunting for P11 here versus Pirvu as they make the way down the back straight. He's going to look up the inside here, but you can see that BMW M4 no slouch on the straights, much like the Mercedes. And I do think that Pirvu's invested in some straight line speed as Pitchik's into the pits. He's decided to come on in to do repair work to the car and perhaps also put on a set of wets. But do keep in mind, as we can see though with the forecast to the top right corner, it's the case that rain is expected not to last more than half an hour as they make the way down to the braking zone here for turn number 9. And Caruso has to hold off the Ferrari behind as he drifts his way into turn 9. They're all right on that knife edge right now with regards to these conditions as they make the way now. Oh, get a spin, snap oversteer there, and contact with the Ferrari BBF behind as they made their way in to the run to turn number 9. I would say turn number 10, I should say, and the F-Course driver there in the wars, and I think the Shoulds may frown upon that somewhat, although where was he to go, he would argue, as they now make the way towards turn number 12. And you can see Kraling here has gained some ground as he rolls his way through turn number 12, and behind him he has got Konstantin Soldatov, the championship leader, who goes up the inside, sends it into turn number 13 and says, I'm taking this place back whether you like it or not. But here's the case that Stefan Kraling into the pits here. He's decided enough's enough, he can't stay out, and I think a number of drivers who have come into the pits are all deciding they don't want to be on slicks in these wet conditions. But meanwhile at the front of the field, staying out there, braving the conditions, is the Benzino driver of Maxim Komenczuk as the Ukrainian makes his way through turn number 3 here. He's P1 in the number 1 car, and well, here's the case, he's going all in, as is Vasily Onufriev right now, who rolls his way through turn number 4 and up into 5. We then got Gutman and what is Martin Ulrich behind, and Ulrich in particular will feel very comfortable in that Bentley in these conditions. The Bentley being one of those cars which does very well in changing conditions, and the McLeod Racing Team driver from Denmark right now, well, he's not going to be happy with the fact he's had to fight the car through turn number 6 as they roll the way through turn number 7. You can see how it's the case, even in one of the more stable cars here, nicknamed the Boatley, given the fact that it is meant to handle like a boat and it also looks like a British naval vessel, it must be said. It is the case of the British machine, even coming unstuck, much like its peers around in these tricky conditions. But as he makes his way down the back straight, here is the case that we do see it's Siokan as the Romanian driver, and oh goodness me, what has happened here, ladies and gentlemen? Have we had a server issue? We'll have to double check, but I think something may have gone wrong, and I think we may have just lost the server. We'll be right back to find out what's happened. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, we are back. We do apologise for that, but we did encounter a technical issue with the server, which caused the race server to crash. We're not exactly sure the reason as to the crash at the moment. That's still being investigated, but the server is back up, and we will be going racing once again in the next 2 minutes. However, there has been a change to what will be happening in terms of procedures now. It is the case that we'll be having another qualifying session. It will be a 10-minute qualifying session, and then we'll be going racing for 50 minutes, still with a mandatory pit stop in there. It is the case that because we did not complete even at 25% of the race distance, we'll be going once again for the full run, albeit we'll be taking away 15 minutes of the racing, which will shorten things and perhaps change up the strategies that our drivers will be employing. But it's my understanding we still do have that mandatory pit stop plus the 15-minute pit window. But it will mean that it turns into a little bit more of a sprint race compared to a bit more of a feature race with that change in time. And we are just seeing our drivers right now make the way into the pit lane and getting ready to go. In fact, we are forwarding on to the next session. It is the case we are now going qualifying. So as our drivers make the way out of the pits here, it is the case go, go, go for everybody once again as they make to the circuit. But this time, it is the case we can see the conditions are a bit different. We now have sunshine and cloud over the circuit rather than the rain, which was really going to make it to shape up to be a very tricky race, and particularly a very interesting one for the opening 30 minutes, but you never know. It is the case that the weather could change once again as everybody makes their way out onto the circuit. But as they roll their way on down here, it is the case that Stephen Hildebrand made his way through turns 1 and 2, and I think he'll be thinking about how fortunate it was in the opening couple of minutes of the cancelled or the aborted race, how he'd made his way up the order, and he'll be kicking himself for the fact that he can't have that result now, and he's got to do it all again. But you never know, the VRL performance driver could make his way up through the order after qualifying inside the top 10, just completing the top 10 in that first qualifying session, and we'll have to see if he's able to do it a second time as all our drivers make the way around right now and head down that back straight towards their first flying laps in short order. But indeed, for a number of drivers, it will be a reset, and Maxim Komzuk, who the Ukrainian driver from Benzino, who made that gamble to stay on out, and well, of course, that gamble will be all for nothing now, and we'll have to wait and see whether he will find his way up towards the front of the field based on qualifying pace this time, given the fact he was one of a number of drivers who was right there in contesting pitching for that pole position, but just could not string the lap together, and that will be the challenge. But as he makes his way up through turn number 4 and 5 here and into 6 and 7, it is the case. We can see in front of him the Honda driver of what is just up the road. That's Gareth Fullin making his way on through as well. Everybody absolutely itching. And for a lot of our drivers, of course, this will be a degree of frustration. They have to do qualifying again, but it's understandable. Of course, I can tell you from experience, when you have to go through qualifying a second time, nobody wants to do it. Even if you were all the way down, you just want to focus on getting through the evening. But at the same time, these things happen. You have to reset mentally and go racing once more. As we see Dean Bella here making his way on around to go onto a lap, and we do ride on board here with Dean Bella as he heads onto that time line for his first flying lap of his qualifying session. So he makes his way to turn 1 here in the Audi R8 and braking at 100 metres, coming down the gearbox here and rolling through turn number 1. And this is an appreciation of the dashboard camera, just how much curve they use at certain corners. Using a very little curve there on the apex of 2, given how it's essentially on a bridge, that curve, and they've unsettled the car as he makes his way down into turn number 3, braking at 100 metres, coming way through, and you can see there just lifted off the brakes to get the rear to lift up and rotate round as he comes through 4 and into 5, the slightest corner on the circuit, but immediately getting back on the throttle as he exits 5, lifting off there in the run through 6, and as soon as he feels the car bite into the apex, getting back on the throttle, through throttle now down towards the back straight, and as he heads out of 7, now it's the long run here, you can listen to the sound of the V10 engine. It's a wonderful sound, that V10 engine, as he gets ready for turn number 8 here, looking for his brake mark on the left, that 50 metre board, a dab of the brakes at 55 metres, downshifting 1 gear from 6th to 5th, and bringing the car through just within the track limits. Now braking hard into turn number 9 here, looking for that late apex. You can see letting the car drift out wide, and as soon as he sees the late apex curve, he goes for it, snatches it, now charging out of the corner up towards turn number 10, bringing the car to the right, into the centre of the road, and late apexing once again here, looking for that very last minute apex, not touching the curve, just trying to brush it, and as they make the way out to turn number 10 and in for 11, up to 12, straight line braking here, and again it's another very late apex which he now takes, rolls his way to left-hand side of turn 13 and makes his way for the right-hand corner here. A nice smooth lap from Dean Vella, and the GT Omega RPM Esports driver makes his way to the line. And what will it be for his first flying lap of this restarted qualifying session? It is going to be a 55.182. It's 6.5 tenths off of Gutman, who's taken provisional pole by 54.510. But given the fact we did see 54 zeros in that previous qualifying session, could we see them again? That track temperature is not too different from the previous qualifying session. A track temperature of 31 degrees centigrade when ambient of 24, whereas previously it was a ambient of 23 and a track of 30. So that is quite close, but of course we have a bit more sunshine at the moment, which will mean that track temperature is likely to stay where it is, if not increase rather than decrease. With the more cloud, of course, less sunlight beaming down the circuit, track temperature normally does fall away. But Ola Pitchik, as he makes his way out of the pit lane, he's already set one lap and then reset to the pits to go again. As we say, a thank you to what is SPQR Marco Mancuso for following our channel here at European Racing Series. It is the case the Team Bullish Ukraine driver's now got it all to do if he wants to take that pole position the second time round after what was a very close knife fight in qualifying between Gutman and Pitchik. But now it is the case that Gutman has the advantage as we head into the second half of this shortened qualifying session. But as he rolls his way through turns 3, 4 and up towards 5, a little bit unsteady there, and it's the case he's on an out lap, of course. But meanwhile, we look from him to Konstantin Soldatov here, and the BMW Sim Racing driver currently P6, and that BMW M4 just does not seem to have enough in this qualifying session. It seems like Soldatov here just cannot find that little element in the setup, or perhaps he's just not able to settle down into the lap as much as he'd like for a single lap. But it is the case, he's been showing that he can be the fastest out there. We've seen him light up certain parts of the timing screen purple, but it's just not there in the complete lap as he makes his way through the final corner. And as he heads to the line here, he's 8 tenths up on his previous best. It won't be pole position, but he'll put in P2 by the looks of things. And as he crosses line, there's the P2. He's still 1 3/4 tenths off of Gutman's time, but it's a 54.682 for the Russian driver Soldatov. And now he's got to try and close the remainder of the delta with the time remaining. Well, he hasn't got long to do it. He's got 2 more laps out there by the looks of things. If he's got enough fuel to deliver them, will he be able to? But are there any other surprises right now? Well, we can definitely see that Stefan Kraling here, the Mosquito Motorsport driver from Germany, has found the time out of the circuit. He's up to P10 at the moment, albeit he may drop a little bit, as in fact we see there Krasinski going P2, 1.5 tenths off of Gutman's pole lap, and in this case Kraling drops out of the top 10. But definitely it does seem as though in these slightly warmer track temperatures and clearer skies, a number of drivers enjoying the qualifying a bit more and finding that lap time that they couldn't necessarily find in the previous qualifying session. And we see Kraling here definitely delivering when it matters now. He's only 1.1 seconds off of Gutman's time, but to be fair, he'll be focused more on trying to get himself into that top 10. But to do so, he's got to find 3 tenths of a second to close up to P10 driver. What is, well, it was P10, but he's dropped out. I was going to stay Stefan Hildebrand, but now in fact he's got to find 3 tenths of a second to what is Grammer, as we see here. Vasily Grammer making his way down towards turn number 8 in the Digital Racing Squad BMW M4, and as he just avoids reaching the track limits there, keeping it together. But meanwhile, we can see that we do now have, I should say, get the words out, we have a new pole position in the form of Komzuk here, a 54.392. It is the case the Benzino driver from Ukraine in the Audi R8, beating Gutman to a faster lap time, but we still got more time to go. But will we see a change up here? Of course, it was Maxim Komzuk who looked to be going for pole, but with a compromised lap right at the end of the first qualifying session, lost out, and now he's going to have to see if that is enough with a 1/10 advantage. But already Frederick Gutman here making his way through turn number 8 and into 9, and right now he is 2.5 tenths up on Komzuk's pole lap. It is the case the Luma Racing driver here from Germany is giving it his all in this qualifying session. There's no doubt about it, and with 2 minutes on the clock, he'll have this lap plus 1 more as he rolls his way through the left-hander of turn number 10, and as he comes through 11 and up towards 12, the number 97 driver here is about 3 tenths faster. 2 corners remain. Of course, these corners are make or break on the lap. Indeed, every corner around here could be arguably make or break, but these two in particular, given how difficult they are in quick succession. And as he exits the final corner here, he's still 3 tenths up according to my time screens, but he's losing a lot of time on corner exit. It wasn't the smoothest of exits, but he goes back to pole position, but it's only by 1/10 of a second in the end. Gutman taking that pole back with a 54.262, but can anybody else wrap? Well, we're hearing that Boris Garafulin right now is improving. improving, and the Honda driver heading to the timeline here. He's P15, he goes P2, missing out on pole by only 0.02 of a second. He's got one more lap to go in the Honda NSX Evo. Could he potentially snatch pole? It's the case. We have got a fight in our hands, so who can take pole at the close once again? But it is looking very nip and tuck right now between Gutman, Garofalin and Komazuk, and then we have a 2-tenths gap, or 3-tenths gap almost, to Kaczynski in P4. As we continue to see the timer come down, less than a minute to go. We do have a couple of drivers parked in the pits, however, and Hildebrand in particular being one of them, who is going to settle for P13 at most in the Lamborghini Huracan. And well, that is going to be a bit of an upset given how strong he performed in the opening qualifying session. But the Viral performance driver, I think, is one to watch when we go racing. But meanwhile, as Garofalin makes his way down the back straight here, he's currently 2 tenths down on what is the pole position time and also his previous best. So right now, Garofalin not improving. This could be too much for him to be asked from at the very end of this qualifying session. But meanwhile, elsewhere, who else is improving? We've got Vasi Grammer here coming out of the final corner, and the Digital Racing Squad driver is going to improve. How much improvement is it going to be? He goes from P12 to P8 there, gaining by 6 tenths on his previous best, and he parks up to quit the qualifying session. He's done and dusted. There's no more in the car as he parks on over. We've still got more drivers out there though, putting lap times in. Alex Anash in particular, he's currently 1.6 seconds up on his previous best, and the PG Motors driver comes to the line. It's P22, changed to P13. That's a huge gain there from Anash, and you can see there the delta from P13 to pole position, 0.8 of a second. That's how close it is. And well, everybody putting pressure on one another right now. So Fredrik Gutman comes across the line and improves to a 54.200. I don't think anyone's going to be able to respond to that. What can Pitchik do as he makes his way through the final 2 corners here? The Ukrainian driver is not on the best lap here, is the case. But he's improving, but nowhere near what he delivered in the opening qualifying session. He comes to the line. He's currently P8. He'll go P3, but it's not enough to take pole. And it is the case his main rival for pole position in the previous qualifying session has taken that pole, as we see Maxim Komazuk come across the line and only off by 1/10 in the end. He's P2. We've still got a couple of drivers making their way on the round. We've got Soldatov here heading down towards what is turn number 12, but the Russian driver right now not really improving. I don't think this is going to be an improvement at all. Where I say that, he's improved by 1/10 as he rolls his way through the final corners, and as he exits turn number 13, he goes a bit deep. That's going to cost him in the run to the timeline. Is it going to be an improvement at all, or is it the case it's still P7? He moves to P6, he gets ahead of Kaczynski, but it's not enough to get him any further than the 3rd row of the grid, and that is a little bit of a surprise for a championship leader, but still he'll be looking to deliver in the race itself. As we've got our final drivers coming around that, and in particular Luka Zvirkov, the German driver here from Von Deher Racing, making his way to the final corner, and as the number 23 driver rolls his way on through, what can he do here with the clock counting down? It is the case he's currently P21. He is improving on this lap, however. He's 2.2 seconds off, and he moves to P17. In the end, he improves by 0.8 of a second, and it is the case that he moves all the way up into the top 20, but it is, in the end, Fredrik Gutman who takes pole position this time, and, well, now we go racing once more for only 50 minutes, and Gutman will be the driver who has the pressure to hold on to the lead come the end of the opening lap and see if he can convert it into a win here at Paul Ricard. But definitely a shake-up in the order, and I think with the weather right now looking quite pleasant, we may be seeing a shake-up from the rain that we saw in the originally started race, but we'll have to see whether that is the case once we get racing. As we do wait to go racing here, it is the case all of our drivers absolutely itching to go, given the fact that they have seen this race restarted once. And well, where will it go in the end with Soldatov there, P6? But to be fair, he doesn't need to win today to still be championship leader. He just needs a podium finish, and he'll be placed very well. But of course, he'll want to get every best result as the grid is formed. And let's take you down through the grid once again in the restarted Paul Ricard race that is now only 50 minutes long. So starting on pole position this time, it will be Fredrik Gutman from Luma Racing from Germany in the BMW M4, taking pole in the end ahead of Komazuk. That is Maxim Komazuk from Ukraine, the Benzino driver in the Audi R8 Evo 2, starting P2 alongside him. Boris Galifin in the end being able to get onto the 2nd row. P3 for the Russian driver in the Honda NSX Evo, being joined on that row by your previous pole position driver Oleg Pitchek in the Audi R8. And here's the case, the Team Bullish Ukraine driver from Ukraine will now look to go hunting early on this race and try to hunt down that race win. Jonas Hawks lines up P5, starting off our third round, the Audi R8 from Germany, and being joined by Konstantin Soldatov, our championship leader, the Russian driver from BMW Sim Racing, starting in P6. Behind him, Vasily Onufriev, one of his main rivals, the Team WRT driver in the Audi R8, starting P7, the Russian driver being joined on the fourth row by Mateusz Kozinski there, the Polish driver in the Simulation Esport Audi R8 GT3, starting P8. Behind them, completing our first 5 rows, we've got Oliver Gehör, the Mosquito Motorsport driver from Germany in the McLaren 720S, and Vasi Grammer in the end having a much better qualifying session this time around, the Digital Racing Squad driver starting at P10 from Romania. P11 starting off row at number 6. It is Dean Belev and GT Omega RPM Esports in the Audi R8, being joined by the Porsche 911 driver of Mosquito Motorsports, Stefan Kraling from Germany. P13 starting off row number 7 at PG Motors, Alex and Ash from Romania and the BMW M4, being joined by Martin Ulrich, the Danish driver in the McLeod Racing Team at Bentley Continental. Behind them on row number 8 we have Stefan Hildebrand, P15 and Lamborghini Huracan Evo, the VRL performance driver from Germany, being joined by P16 driver Max Holliger, and the Mosquito Motorsport driver in the BMW M4 has got it all to do once again. And then starting off our 9th row we have Lukas Virkov, the Von Deher racing driver in the German Audi R8, being joined by Andrei Siokan, the Romanian in the end only able to achieve P18 come the curtain finish in the qualifying session, and he's racing for Digital Racing Squad. P19 making up the first part of row number 10. It is Andrei Svescu from PGM Esports, and the BMW M4 driver from Romania is being joined by Simona Caruso and the Italian driver from Flat Out Sim Racing in the Mercedes Evo, starting at P20. P21 we have Nelson Abranhosa in the Aston Martin Racing and V8 Vantage from Team Abbey Racing, being joined by Adrian Pirvu, the PG Motors driver in the BMW M4 from Romania, starting P22. And then we have Bebev, the Ferrari 488 Evo driver from Switzerland for AF Course, being joined on row number 12 by Steve Taylor in the McLaren 720S, the American driver racing for JP Motorsport. And on the final row, last but not least, Dustin Bonds from the Netherlands for the Aribo Racing Team, starting in P25. Well, as we look to the helicam here, it is the case that all of our field are peeling away for another manual double file formation lap, and as they all make the way down and round through the opening couple of corners of this circuit, all of our drivers now will know what they've got to do in terms of their preparation, and they'll be looking to the weather radar, which is available of course at the top right corner of your screen, ladies and gentlemen. And as you can see, it is the case, the weather radar this time showing it is cloud with a bit of sunshine, and it is the case that track temperature standing at 30 degrees centigrade with an ambient at 23, no rain on the forecast for at least the next 30 minutes by the looks of things, and that will mean that it's going to be perhaps a bit more of a predictable start to this race, or at least in terms of the weather and the strategy, not necessarily in terms of who will be the leader come the end of the opening lap, should anybody get a good, a bad, or somewhere in between start. But of course that will come down to all of our drivers, and Jonas Vogts in particular, as we ride on board here with the German driver in the Audi R8. He'll be looking this time to have a much better start of the race and hold on to that top 5 position, if not try and gain on Gareth William Pidgic, given the fact they had a very difficult start in the aborted race with that rain really catching him out. Indeed, that instant as well going into the opening couple of corners, upsetting the car and sending him wide. But this time he won't have to worry about that. He'll be hoping not to worry about it as much as he makes his way all the way down the back straight. But we can also see a little bit further back, it is the case that Stefan Hildebrand here, the Lamborghini Huracan driver, the VRL performance driver, this time starting P15, not P10. He'll know he's got a bit more work cut out for him, and well, in that Lamborghini, one of those cars which isn't very favourably balanced on the balance of performance here on a set of course of competition. It's argued to be the weakest of the cars in the 2021 balance of performance package, but we'll have to wait and see whether Hildebrand can upset the expectations here and pull off a strong finish. Never say never, of course. He did look very good early on, and I'm sure he can give it a go at bringing it back, as we see a lot of side-to-side weaving here from all of our drivers as they make their way down that back straight. Everybody trying to get as much temperature in the car here, a lot of weaving. Further back, we've got Nelson Abranhosa here, and as we ride on board the dashboard of the Aston Martin driver, it is the case that starting just outside the top 20, he'll be looking to try and finish inside the top 20 when all is said and done over the 50 minutes, and can he achieve it? That will be his challenge as he makes his way down towards turn number 8. And in front of him, Svescu there, doing a lot of weaving as well, as it is the case the two drivers cut in between each other, given the fact that we don't quite have full models on at the moment on the formation lap, but we will be expecting those full models to be on when we go racing, and Abranhosa there just getting settled in. As we do look inside the car right now, in this case just cruising up in second gear, first gear in fact, and I think just doing a quick downshift there to put some acceleration in the car on the exit of turn number 8 and get some more brake temperature. as we look from him back up towards what is the top 10, and Patty Grammar here, the Digital Racing Squad driver, starting at the bottom of our top 10 in that P10 position. The Digital Racing Squad driver will be looking to get a good start versus Claire as they make the way away from that start-finish line, but can he do it? Can he take the pressure to the McLaren 720S driver? That McLaren, of course, known for its acceleration and prowess through direction change, not for its straight line speed, but that is the theory. Will it work out that way in practice as we see the field bunching up here, and Frederick Gutmann in particular leading our drivers now through turn number 11 and down towards turn number 12. We're only a couple of corners away from the restart, and when we do restart this race, it'll be Frederick Gutmann who takes us to the green for Luma Racing and away for 50 minutes of racing action in round 6 of the European Racing Series GT3 Championship Season 6. And it's away we go once again. Green flags away, but Frederick Gutmann gets us underway as they make the way down towards turn number 1. And he defends to the inside here, holding that inside position as much as he dares into the corner. But as they come down to braking, look at this. Soldatov right now finds himself between two drivers as they roll through the opening corner. A bit further back, everybody has made it through turn number 1 safe and sound. And as they come through 2, we've got a bit of contact now. I think that's Dean. Well, that's not Dean Bella, my apologies. That is Anash versus Hildebrand a bit further back. And we've also got Craning versus Claire as they make the way down towards turn number 3. But everybody keeping it safe and sound, and everybody's made it for the opening corner. So we've got a run wide there from one of our BMW M4s, the Digital Sim Racing Squad driver. I believe they're going a bit wide, and as they come through turn, oh goodness me, we've got a spin there, and that a bit further back I believe is Jokenham to run wide, but I think it's Aaron Host who's also run wide there. We can't quite see who's got it right. I think that was Stillman Hildebrand who got it wrong through turn number 4 and 5, and as they now make the way onto the back straight, we are fully up to speed and racing as we look to the front of the field. And Frederick Gutmann right now has not been able to break away from Cummins. Look at the start, but he's held onto the lead as they make the way up towards turn number 8 and come charging into there very shortly. But you can see already as behind we've got 3 wide, but meanwhile at the front of the field it's going to be Cummins on the inside as they go into turn number 8. And as they make the way through the corner, oh goodness me, the 2 drivers in major contact, and it's the case that Gutmann comes across the circuit and it's Onufriev who's contacted. There's multiple contacts there, and my good lord, it is the case it may not have weather adding to the drama, but we've definitely had drama in terms of drivers coming together as it's Gutmann who jumps to the pits. He's been towed to the pits, and Boris Garifuni is now your race leader as they make the way towards the end of this opening lap. Well, that was not to be expected, and it is the case that so many drivers been affected. Cameras that they're no stranger to being involved in that instant. I wonder if the stewards are going to be taking a look at that and thinking he may have been the one at fault, or whether it's the case that Gutmann was the one who turned in on him. Well, that's for the stewards to decide after one lap, though it is the case that Boris Garifuni leads this race, the Russian driver leading by only a couple of attempts ahead of Kemzuk in P2, followed by Jonas Fawkes in P3, and then we've got Konstantin Soldatov who's gained 2 places since the start in P4. The BMW Sim Racing driver just staying out of trouble. Vasily Onufriev in P5, being chased by Grammar in P6. It's the case the Digital Racing Squad driver has gained 4 places since the start. Martin Ulrich P7 also making ground, followed by Oliver Gahur in P18. The Mosquito Motorsport driver having a good start in that McLaren 720S. Then Alex and Ash in P9, followed by Stephen Krelling in P10 here as the Porsche driver goes to the move down into turn number 3. He can't find it, and now he'll be out of position in the run to 4, but he brings the car nicely to the apex there and doesn't lose too much time. They're your top 10 with Andrei Savescu going hunting after Krelling for P10 as they make the way on the round, but meanwhile a bit further back there you can see Steve Taylor battling with Simone Clarusso. As we see it is the case, the JP Motorsport McLaren right at the back of the picture right now, losing the position there to Clarusso as they roll their way through 6 and in towards turn number 7. And will he be able to come back down the straight here as we ride on board with the JP Motorsport driver? I don't think he's got the momentum, and in fact look at that, Mercedes just pulling the McLaren down the straight here. It's the case that Taylor is in the slipstream, but he's just got no straight line speed by comparison, and the Mercedes V8 really delivering here as they head all the way up to the next corner. But as they do, we look a bit further up and we can see where it's the case. We've got a battle into turn number 8, and that's Oliver Gahur getting ahead of Vasily Onufriev, and I think Onufriev really struggling with the damage he picked up with that contact with the stricken car across the road of Gutmann coming out to turn number 8 last time around. And you can see Onufriev literally right now losing place left, right and centre as he decides to go off circuit. He straight lines off there, and I think that's into the wall, and meanwhile it's Anash who goes on through, and behind them will so many drivers gaining from all of this. Of course we've got Krailing, we've also got Oliga there as they make the way through turn number 11 and into 12. And as they roll the way through the left-hander, turn 12 and into 13 right now, it is the case. This race has really opened up, and it's anyone's bets as to who will be in that top 10 come the finish. A lot of our favourites, of course, have been in the wars already as they make the way onto another lap very shortly. But we're at 46 minutes still on the clock. It is the case we've got a long way to go, and a lot more could happen. But Stephen Craning in particular here trying to put some pressure on the Nash, and the Nash not falling for it, given the fact that the BMW M4 driver just has enough momentum on the straightaways to keep the Mosquito Motorsport driver at bay. But behind, Svirkov here gaining the place on Oliger, and we're going to take a look back at how that happened. Was they made their way coming out of the final corner here. You see Oliver getting a little bit unsettled as they made their way out of 13, and as they charge down the straight here, just look at the speed that Svirkov's got in that Audi R8 by comparison, just gaining in the toe. And as they made their way down towards turn 1, he peeled out to the inside there. Oliver did not cover it off, and that was how Svirkov got the move done up the inside into turn 1, and he moved up into P10 as they rolled their way through turn number 2. We'll very shortly return to live pictures, and as we do return to those live pictures, will we now see a return move from Oliger in the slipstream down the back straight? Well, to be fair, right now, I think the answer is no. Because that BMW M4 is gaining, but it's not gaining enough. Although I say that we've still got about a third of the straight remaining as they head on down. It's a long, long way, and you can see Oliger's going to look to the inside as they make their way past the camera, and as they do, Svirkov's made to go wide. There he goes a little bit deep. Oh, goodness me, and Oliger in contact as they make their way down to turn number 9. He keeps on the circuit. They're still side by side through turn number 9. Oliger's not giving this up. The Mosquito Motorsport driver is here to stay, and as they roll out 9 up into 10, the two drivers battling for P10 in this race, side by side, coming through turn number 10 still, and Oliger loses the position for the time being. Where you can see that Svirkov definitely defending hard as they make the way out of the corner and now up towards turn number 12, and behind Andrei Savescu is looking at us and thinking, how can I get involved? There's no doubt about that, as we've got 5-second penalties for a number of drivers. We've got 5-second penalty for Pirvu, also for Bonds, also for Sioken as well. We've got a 15-second penalty. It is the case a number of drivers have been penalised on the opening laps, but meanwhile as they all make their way down towards turn number 1 in our top 10. It is the case of Nash getting very close to the back of Graham. He's had to back off there, and Craning's going to look up the inside into turn 1, but in the end he has to back out. He had a lot of momentum but no way through as they make the way through turn number 2 and head up towards turn number 3, and as they come charging down towards the right hand corner, it is Chris Kaling looking very strong but not able to find a move. As meanwhile a bit further back here is Hildebrand, who's really right now stuck in a bit of no man's land, P15, but behind that's Dustin Bonds, who has got clearance, so coming up is inside, and Pitchik as well looking for the move, and the Ukrainian driver Pitchik of course trying to get himself all the way back into this race and dropped to the back of the field after that lap 1 incident. Well, right now he is P18 and battling with Clearaso and Dustin Bonds for P16 as they roll their way through turn 6 and up towards 7, and as they come onto the back straight once again we'll see that Mercedes will absolutely fly, and can Pitchik stay with them given the fact that Clearaso right now really looking to be optimised for straight line speed, as we've got a drive-through penalty for our P2 driver of Kermsuk there. I think it is the case that he has been deemed, unless I'm mistaken. I can't quite see what the steward's verdict is. In fact, we can get an update on that very shortly, but I do believe it is the case that Kermsuk has been deemed to have caused that incident between himself and the other drivers there into turn number 8, and it is the case that the Benzino driver with a drive-through penalty has been very, very heavily penalised, and that will massively hurt his race now and really release Garafulin to go off into the distance, as Boris Garafulin right now leading this race. We'll see that come up on the announcements, and he'll be thinking to himself, okay, I've really got a 2.5 second advantage, as we see Kermsuk into the pits from P2, and it will now be Jonas Fox who takes second place ahead of Soldatov. Now, of course, at this rate, Soldatov, I think, will be breathing a sigh of relief and thinking that he hasn't really had to do much other than stay out of trouble so far. And indeed, our championship leader doing very well here just to keep his head in the game as he rolls his way on through. But meanwhile, we're dropping down the order massively, given the drive-through penalty. This will present opportunities for so many other drivers to battle for P4, P5. And right now, Oliver Galler, the McLaren 720S driver, the Mosquito Motorsport driver, he's got a nice gap to what is Martin Ulrich behind him, running in P4 is the German driver. And as he heads through turn number 4, he'll be settling into this race and just keeping his cool and thinking that this is all working out right now, and more than even he expected, I would imagine, as he rolls his way through turn number 6 and head up towards turn number 7. But as he does, of course, the drive-through penalty for Kevin Zook will have a major implication on the championship battle going into the final round, because now he'll have to gain all the way. He's dropped all the way down to P19, and he's going to have to find his way all the way up the order if he wants to have any chance of taking on Soldatov in the season finale for the championship crown. But meanwhile, looking a bit further down the order, we've got Pitchik here who's gained another place. He's found his way past Dustin Bonds, and as we see the Team Bullish Ukraine driver here now on the back straight, well, Bonds will be staying right there with him in the long charge all the way out to turn 8. You can see Bonds now looking to the outside here. He's got the run, but it's a very long run as we see Viruso ahead, and it's the case that Pitchik has to tuck back on in. He hasn't got the straight line speed to stay ahead as they make the way into the right hand of a turn 8. He waits once again, as meanwhile behind we do have Bebev there watching on and going hunting as well as they make the way down. We see going wide there, that is Siokan, who goes wide coming out to turn 8 in the BMW M4. But right now our drivers in this freeway battle for P16 all keeping it together so far as they make the way up towards turn number 10. But Bebev definitely for AF course looking to go racing versus Pitchik and not being disgruntled or dissuaded by the fact he's battling with the driver who's P5 in the championship going into this round. But as they make the way on through into turn number 12, we look to Abrin Hosa and also Savescu here. They've changed places, and Abrin Hosa is up into P11 as they make the way down towards turn number 1. And that pass I'm hearing away was made into turn number 13. Abrin Hosa getting ahead, and well, the Aston Martin driver, we said watch out for the Aston Martin in the race. He's gained a lot, and the number 33 driver is continuing to push on as he rolls his way through 2 and down towards turn number 3. Now as he comes down, we've got a 5-second penalty being awarded to Pitchik, Oli Pitchik, as they make the way on through, and I believe that is for contact early in the race for another driver. But ahead of Abrin Hosa, you can see there we've got Oliga really all over the back of Sverkov as we've got these two battles forming really. We've got a battle building for what is P7 in the leading group, and then behind them we've got the battle for P11 as they roll the way around. And Abrin Hosa right now under a lot of pressure as we ride on board the rear wing of the Team Abbey Racing driver, and you can see the Aston Martin getting the better run initially with its V8. It's no slouch on the straights, but by comparison, Savescu in the slipstream, he's got all the time in the world as he peels to the outside there. And will Pirvu also come on through with him? That'll be the big question as they make the way up towards turn number 8. It's side by side as they head towards the braking zone for the long right-hander, and as they do, Abrin Hosa goes defensive here. They both run through side by side. There's contact between the two of them, and as they make the way on Abrin Hosa, they're definitely backing off after the contact to give his rival the opportunity to rejoin. And I think it's the case trying to hang around the outside of turn number 8 is dangerous enough as it relies a lot on the driver on your inside not to get it wrong and misjudge the entry speed into the corner in a 2-wide scenario. Well, now Savescu finds himself battling with a fellow BMW M4 there of Pirvu as they make the way through turn number 10 and into 11. And right now the Romanian driver literally having to go defensive left, right and centre after that contact. Oh, and it's a lunge to the inside from Adrian Pirvu, and the PG Motorsports driver sends them both wide, and up the inside goes Hildebrand. They have a bit of contact. The Lamborghini driver says, don't mind if I do, and as they make the way out of the final corner here, it's the case that Hildebrand gains a place, as does Pirvu, and meanwhile, it is the situation Savescu has lost 2 places whilst trying to gain 1. Well, I think the VRL performance driver may be under investigation from the stewards for that contact if it does get reported, but it is the case. He took the opportunity, and credit to him for trying for it, but we'll have to wait and see whether the stewards thought it was a good move. I would say he went for it there, and whilst it was on the limit, I think it may end up being treated as a racing instinct given the fact that the 2 drivers in front had come together as well, and the Hildebrand had gone for it. But of course that's open to interpretation. Again, that's why I'm not in the stewards room. It's the case I'm in the commentators booth. But as they make their way through 4 and 5 right now, Hildebrand definitely showing that if he's going to gain places, he's going to be brave to do so. But as we look from our P13 drive battling for P12 to our race leader right now, it is the case. Here is Gareth Fullion, who is leading, and in Jonas Fuchs behind him at 3.7 seconds back and not really closing at this time, as we then have Konstantin Soldatov, who is definitely closing gradually, and Jonas Fuchs as they make their way through turn number 8. But as they roll their way on through, it is the case that the battle for P5 is building up here. You see Martin Ulrich in P5, and then behind him, just just missing the track limit detection signpost is Vasi Grama there as they make their way down, but he's gone wide. They're coming into turn number 9, taking too much speed and not able to bleed it on the brakes enough. And as they roll the way through turn number 9 and into 10, is the case the Digital Racing Squad driver really pushing hard. He wants to try and get that top 5 finish. You can understand why. Some major points available on the board, but right now he's got to be wary of the fact if he keeps going too wide, he may be subject to a drive-through penalty for track limits. Now, so you may be wondering at this point, of course, given it's a 15-minute race and we have a 15-minute pit window, will we be seeing those pit stops start soon? Yes is the short answer, because the halfway point of this race will be 25 minutes, and if you add 7.5 minutes each way, that means it will be the case that after what will be a 17.5 minutes of racing, we're not too far from that, only a couple of minutes from that point, we will see the pit window open, and it will close at what will be 32.5 minutes of racing complete. So we've right now got to try thinking about the strategies as well, but I think for many it's all about battling and trying to hold on, as we see Anashim making his way through turn number 2, and as he heads on down, Svirkov here in P9 as they roll the way up towards turn number 3, and the Avonde here racing Audi R8 driver definitely under some pressure from Oliger, who finds himself in P10 and trying to gain another position inside that top 10, but behind Hildebrand has gained another place. He's got ahead of Nelson Abramhosa, and let's take a look at how the move was made. Well, as they made the way down towards turn number 1 in this battle for what was P11 at the time, with Hildebrand coming from P12, it's the case he didn't get the run through the opening 2 corners. In fact, he had the run out of 2, and this is where he went through. He just had the better exit up the inside, and I don't think Abramhosa had anything to do other than stand that outside line. He couldn't really offer a defence, and as they rolled the way on out, that is how Stephen Hildebrand made his way up into P11, and now he's only 1 place away from being inside that top 10. As we return to live pictures, and it is those situations where the Lamborghini driver definitely showing its nuance. As we on the battle for the final spot in the top 10, it is the case. Max Oliger there getting ahead of Lukas Svirkov, who's gone very wide there. I don't think there was contact between the 2 of them, but it is the case there was a mistake. That's for Svirkov, unless I am mistaken myself, but he drops to P10, and behind them in the battle for P13, we've got Adrian Pirvu, who's got ahead of Svescu, as it is the case that they both ran into turn number 8, and Pirvu came out on top as they make the way now through turn number 10 and in towards 11. But we've got a lot of back and forths here, just outside or just within the top 10, and as our drivers continue to push their way around, it is the case we're still expecting plenty of racing action before the finish, as meanwhile we can see that Bebev down in P20 here, chasing after Bonds. We've already had 4 retirements from this race, and it is the case we have now only got 21 runners out of our starting 25, as Bebev here trying to find his way past Bonds. That's Dustin Bonds for P19. As they roll their way through the final corner and onto another lap, it's the case the AF course driver looking very close coming out the final corner, but not able to get the power down to feel comfortable to overtake. You can see the Bonds just able to pull away on the straight as they head on to another lap. As they do, and they make the way into turn number 1. Behind them, Steve Taylor running last but not least. Our remaining runners in that P21 position is the American from JP Motorsport. He just pushes on here, looking to get some points today. But as we look from the back of the field up towards the front of the field, it is still Boris Gaufen who leads as he makes his way into turn 8 ahead of Jonas Fuchs. As we see here, the German driver is still gradually being caught by Konstantin Soldatov. That last lap, Soldatov took 2 tenths out of him. The gap now down to 1.5 seconds as the pair make their way through turn number 8 and into turn 9. But as they roll the way through the corner, Soldatov definitely now starting to feel a bit more comfortable in the BMW M4 in these race conditions, and pushing on as we're hearing a drive-through penalty for Savescu, and I believe that drive-through penalty may be for contact with what was Pirvu. Well, I'm not 100% sure actually what the contact's for, whether it's for just track limits. Unfortunately, we don't have any information with regards to that, unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen. I'd love to be able to tell you, but it is the case that Savescu right now will be feeling at the pinch, and here is Andrei Savescu from PGM Esports as he makes his way through turn number 9 and up towards 10, and that drive-through penalty is going to put him to the very back of the field, and that will be a major pain in his side as he heads down towards turn at number 12. But as we see, 32.5 minutes remaining on the clock, the pit window now opens, and we may start to see some early pit stops here from drivers who are trying to undercut as we look behind there, and that is Andrei Siokan, who has found himself a 15-second penalty, and the Digital Racing Squad driver has been in the wars as he makes his way around. But Svirkov into the pits from P10. He's decided to go early, right at the start of the pit window. Of course, our leaders could not come in because they'd already passed the pit entry when the pit window had opened, so they've gone on to another lap, and that's sometimes times the way it falls to the pit window opening, as meanwhile we see Stephen Kraling here up another position, the Mosquito Motorsport driver jumping up into P6. How did he get it done? Well, as we take a look back here, it was in the charge down towards turn number 1. We ride on board. He went to the inside there under braking into turn number 1. And as they look to the exterior pictures here, well, it was a battle into the first corner with the Digital Racing Squad driver of Vassie Grammer and just going up the inside. Grammer not having a response to hold on the inside to 2. And that is how Stephen Kraling has moved up to P6. And the Porsche driver definitely, whilst he wasn't strong in qualifying, it is the case he is showing he's much stronger in race conditions. And the 68 car pushes on as they make the way down the back straight. We can see having to weave down the straight every so often. He'll be allowed 1 or 2 weaves, but excessive weaving will be penalised by the stewards. And as they make the way up towards turn number 8, Kraling definitely now getting a move on. He's got 4 seconds between himself and Martin Ulrich in P5, but I think he's got to worry more about the fact that Grammer's going to come for the return move into turn number 9. Kraling goes a bit deep under braking. Oh, goodness me, and in return Grammer goes deep as well. Well, it was the case that both drivers understeered under braking, but Vassie Grammer coming in with so much momentum in the end he couldn't get it stopped, and Kraling saw the opportunity to go for the cutback there. Well, this battle's only intensifying, and that's going to release the top 5 off into the distance ever more as they make the way up towards turn number 12. And behind them, Alex and Ash here, he's looking at it and thinking, okay lads, just keep knocking one another about. I might have the P6 off the pair of you in a minute, as they make the way through 12 and into 13. But right now I think Ash has got to be patient, and the PG Motors driver's just got to play it smart as well. We see that Kraling has come into the pit. He's decided to come on in and release this battle. I think for him, he wants clear track, and therefore he can go for a potential undercut in the battle for P6. We'll have to wait and see whether on the next lap there is a response from Grammer and Ash as they make the way on through. As they roll the way around right now, you can see there on the left-hand side of your screen on the timing tower, the mandatory stops outstanding for our drivers. Those drivers will have an orange marker next to their driver number with a 1 in the middle of it. Meanwhile, those who have cleared that mandatory pit stop, they will have a green sash between their driver number and the time to the next driver ahead of them. And well, we can keep track of the fact that really right now it's the majority of our drivers towards the back of the field who have had that mandatory stop, although to be fair, Svirkov did pit and has come out in P18 with a 17.5 second advantage over pitching, so therefore he will factor in a little bit higher into the field when all those pit stops occur, as Kraling right now still in the pit lane being serviced, and this is definitely going to throw open the racing as we see Alex Nash now trying to go hunting after P6 driver Grammer as they head up towards turn number 8. As they go charging on up, it is the case a bit further back. We also do have the battle for P11 of Adrian Pirvu and Simone Creoso, and we will come to that very shortly. As meanwhile, we see Anash here closing in the long run, and behind Oliga also closing up to this battle for P6. They all come charging on through and down in towards turn number 9, and Anash closing up most definitely as we ride on board here with the P7 driver. As he exits the corner and heads up towards turn at number 10, the PG Motors driver here, I think will be wondering whether his rival will come into the pits or not, and then whether he decides to react will be the other question. And I would say for Nash to do the opposite of whatever Grammer does at this point. If Grammer stays out, I would really come in. If it is the case that he decides to come in and stay out and take that track position, because really he needs to try and find a way not to get caught up in the battle between what is Grammer and also Hildebrand, and into the pits and Ash comes here. He decides to come on in, and that is going to release Grammer, but in return now could this work as an undercut? And well, we've also got to wonder about what is Kraling, whether he can get on into the mix, as meanwhile that releases a number of drives up the field. But meanwhile Adrian Pirvu has had an off track on this lap, and he comes on in, but he taps the back there of Simone Creoso, and that is very unfortunate when the Italian driver, through no fault of his own, has been knocked into the pit, and he's been knocked the wrong way around. And the flat-out sim racing driver from Italy at this point, I can imagine there's going to be quite a few swear words, and also a report to the stewards for that one, because he will be absolutely infuriated after what was dodging all the madness, and now he's been caught up in it as he comes into the pit from what was at the time a P12 position. But as he makes his way on in and parks it up to be serviced with some damage to repair now as well, if he chooses to do so, we look to Stefan Kraling here, who is chasing after Svirkov, and well, it is the case that Lucas Svirkov just ahead. And Svirkov has found his way out ahead of the Mosquito Motorsport driver after the pit stops, and now Kraling has to make the decision. excuse me, does he battle, or does he simply stand formation and see if he can jump ahead of both Anash and also what will eventually be Grammar? Well, it is the case that Anash has already come out of the pit, so Anash has gained compared to Crane, and Crane here tucked in behind. He's lost out massively. Anash has gained the most in the pit so far, and Alex Anash definitely showing signs of holding the pace back a little bit or having more fuel in the car in that opening stint, and now he'll be going racing, there's no doubt about that. And Stefan Kraling is down to P16 as he heads towards the braking zone for turn number 3, and he's got it all to do, as Pitchick is also making his way gradually up the order, having cleared his mandatory stop in the pit window, and the Team Bullers Ukraine driver is now on a recovery drive after that disastrous start. You can see the war wounds to the Audi R8 in terms of damage on the car as he makes his way down towards turn number 3, but as he rolls in under braking. It is the case of number 141 driver here, definitely having a difficult day at the office, and will be trying to just simply get some points on the board. But meanwhile, we do look from him to what is Vasi Grammar in P6. When he came into the pits P6, he's now P7, as it's the case that Hildebrand stays on out. We've still got 8 or so minutes of this pit window to go, and this is going to continue to shake things up. And the question for Grammar is, can he get out ahead of Alex Anash, who right now is P14, but is charging on fast here as Grammar makes his way down towards his pit box, and Oliger does the same. And these two nose to tail when they came into the pits. Will they be nose to tail when they exit it? We'll have to wait and find out. But meanwhile, where is Anash by comparison? Well, here he is as he heads out of turn at number 9 and up towards 10. And the PG Motors driver here from Romania, it is the case he's pushing on hard, but I think it may be one of the situations where for him, if he doesn't deliver perfectly on this lap, he'll lose out. Grammar is still in his pit box right now. I can tell as I look out my commentary box window, as is Oliger. So it is the case that Anash has an opportunity. He makes his way through the final corner, and as we look to the helicam, we'll see very shortly. Keep your eyes on the left-hand side of the screen, because we will see Grammar and Oliger. They've left their pit boxes. Will they be clear of Anash, or will Anash clear them as they make their way towards turn number 1? Well, there they emerge from the pits, and Oliger comes out, but Anash does not come out ahead of what is there. Grammar, Vasi Grammar comes out ahead by the smallest of margins. They are as they were when Anash came into the pits first, and therefore it is the case now Vasi Grammar has gained in terms of holding on to the position and gaining the race time on Anash as they make their way down towards turn number 3. But as they roll the way on through, do not count out the fact we've still got plenty of time to go, and Anash is definitely now in the car that's been serviced, looking very, very fast. As Boris Gelafun is into the pits on the lead of this race, promoting Jonas Forks into the lead to lead a lap or two before he comes in for his mandatory stop, and Soldatov up to P2, but due a pit stop as well. But we focused here on the battle for the final place in the top 10, with Alex Anash trying to hunt after P10 driver Vasi Grammar. As they make the way all the way down this back straight here in that very long run, of course, it is the case it will be Anash who gains in the toe, and you can see very gradually gaining, not gaining too much. I wouldn't be surprised if both drivers are running a similar amount of downforce in their BMW M4s as they head in towards turn number 8. And Anash is staying right behind his rival. Of course, he has to back out into turn 8. He will lose that front end downforce given the high speed nature of the corner and the fact being in that dirty air of Grammar as they made the way on in. And as they roll the way through the right-hander of turn number 9, and Anash they've run the limit. As meanwhile into the pits, we've also got Maxim Kamazuk and also Martin Ulrich, and Ulrich coming on out here. And of course, it was the case that Kamazuk involved in that instant earlier on, which saw him pick up a drive-through penalty. So Martin Ulrich in a different race compared to Kamazuk, one of our major championship contenders. And as Ulrich makes his way out of the pits, where will he come back on out? That's the question. Stefan Hildebrand is into the pits as well. Silvescu is in. Well, here is Boris Garafulin, mate. He's already back out. He's heading down towards P number 3, and well, sorry, to turn number 3, I should say. But behind Martin Ulrich has left the pit lane, and he emerges in a very comfortable P5. Does the Danishman as he rolls his way through turn number 2, and well, we have Hildebrand, and my goodness, is that the case that Hildebrand has jumped all the way out the order? Surely it can't be. He's listed as P5, but I don't think that's correct. I think it's the case he's a bit further down. In fact, he's down in P11. We're waiting for the timing tower to be updated, but we're definitely getting a chop and change of our order with the remainder of the pit stops being concluded gradually. Still 5.5 minutes on the pit window, 23 minutes left in this race, and we can see Martin Ulrich here in a world of his own with Vasi Grammar right now, more focused, I think, on trying to hold on to that P6 with Alex Anash behind him rather than going hunting after Martin Ulrich with a 6-second gap between the two of them. As a bit behind, you can see they're still grading in P9. The Mosquito Motorsport driver definitely under pressure from the BMW M4 of Max Erlinger behind as they head down the back straight. And well, that BMW looks a long way away, but as they go charging down the straight, you can see that Kraling here heading down. It's that BMW gets closer and closer, but I do wonder if Krayling's running quite low downforce on this Porsche, because it's the case that the BMW behind has not caught up that much, and it's only really now starting to gain as they get towards the end of the straight. He takes a peek there to try and distract the Mosquito Motorsport driver, and indeed perturb the teammates, of course, so they won't want to make contact with one another. But this time around, no change, and Oliger just not that fast on the straights. I think a lot of downforce in that BMW M4. Well, Stefan Krayling definitely running very limited amount of downforce and making it work on that Porsche. There's no question about that as they head up towards turn number 10. But as they roll the way into left-hander here, you can see as they come through the left-hander at 10, Oliger really gaining a Soldatov into the pits, as is Giller. But it's the case, I talk about that, and we can see that it's Gareth Willing who's come past the pair of them. He's now back into what we expect is the lead of this race, but Soldatov has closed up on pit exit quite a bit. That gap now has been reduced between the two leaders, and Soldatov has jumped ahead of Giller as they make their way up to speed. Where is Oliver Giller, I hear you ask? Well, here he is coming through turn number 2 and heading down towards turn number 3, but he has lost out, as has Ulrich, as they head down towards turn number 3. And in fact, Ulrich has gained, I should say, on Giller as they head on down, but it's still Fuchs, Jonas Fuchs, who's in the lead of this race and yet to pit. He's leaving his pit stop to the last in order to try and just have clear track and not worry about having to battle for track position when he emerges from the pits, and he'll wait to see how he fits into the proceedings. But our top 5 definitely spread out now, and it is the case that we're waiting to see how they close on in, if they do, over the remaining 21 minutes of this race. But meanwhile, whilst we're waiting to see what materialises there, we can tell you that outside of the top 5 in the battle here for P7, we've got Svirkov, Lucas Svirkov, who's close up to Alex and Ash as they make their way down towards turn number 8 once more for the 15th time of asking. And as they charge on down here, we can see Svirkov really closing up in the slipstream of that BMW M4, and he's going to look to the inside here, and this is going to be, I think, a straightforward move for the Audi driver as he makes his way into the braking zone here. And in fact, he's already ahead, and then Nash tucks in behind there, recognising that Audi Evo 2 is just so strong on the straights by comparison. And as they make their way down to turn number 9, Svirkov up another position and now going hunting after Grammer. But as he goes hunting after P6, we do look back to that battle for P9, and we look at Max Oliger in particular in P10, who's trying to hunt down his teammate at Krayling from Mosquito Motorsport for that P9 position. No change right now, they stay as they were, but I think these two trying to work something together in order to close up to an Ash. But how long is it before Oliger decides he's had enough and he goes for the move on his teammate? We'll have to wait and see, and will his teammate comply with it? Of course, that is the question. But as they roll the way on through, I can tell you that after it's Jonas Fuchs' final pit stop, indeed his one and only pit stop today, and the final pit stop of the pit window, as we're to understand it, Boris Galifianakis is now your race leader, and he is leading not by a huge margin versus Jonas Fuchs, who you can see there. But Fuchs in return in P2 is under pressure. He might be 3.7 seconds off our race leader, but he's only 1 second off of Konstantin Soldatov, who in P3, the championship leader, is closing down for that P2 position. And can Fuchs keep him at bay with the remainder of the race? Well, it's going to be a difficult one, given the fact they've got 20 minutes plus the final lap to go, so practically it could be as long as 22 minutes to go. And as they make the way down this back straight, Jonas Fuchs right now definitely feeling the pressure, feeling the heat in that cockpit as they head down towards turn number 8. But as they charge him down this time, it is the case that he's going to be safe for now. But you can imagine that Soldatov will be inching closer and closer with each and every lap as they roll their way through turn number 8 once more. And in fact, you can see it there on Konstantin Soldatov really getting closer, coming out of 8 and into 9 here. It does look as though the BMW Sim Racing driver very hooked up through the sweepers and hooked up there, as it is the case that Fuchs gets it wrong. And we ride on board here with Soldatov as he gets all over the back of the Audi driver, who goes defensive into turn 10. And this will only give greater opportunities for Soldatov to look for the move as they make their way through 11 and up towards 12. And as the BMW Sim Racing driver closes up, we can see they're actually backing off a little bit. I think it's more the case of Fuchs getting the better run through turns 10 and 11 into 12 by comparison. But now Soldatov under braking into 13, gaining massively as they make their way out of the corner and onto the start-finish straight. And as they come across the timeline this time around, the gap now down to only 5/10 of a second, whereas at the start of the lap it was a whole second. He's already chopped that gap by half, and now can he bring it down even more as they make their way onto lap number 17? As they roll the way through turn number 1, you can see the Fox literally running on the ragged edge there of that Audi R8, going as deep as he can into the corner and carrying as much speed as he can with him and keeping it just on the circuit at the moment. But I wouldn't be surprised if Fox does find that rear end starting to slide about a bit more as they head through turns 3 and 4. In terms of the weather right now, you may be wondering, is there any rain on the forecast? No rain on the forecast for the rest of this race. We've just got quite a heavy cloud coming over the circuit now, and track temperature has dropped a couple of degrees centigrade, as has the ambient, as they make the way around and onto the back straight. That was the pit window closing we've just heard, and now it's the case of Solotov going hunting here as he heads out to turn number 7 and down towards 8. But you can see on the straight, it's the Audi that gains significantly at first until the slipstream gradually tilts the balance in the favour of Solotov. But it's only really as he gets to the halfway point that he starts to incrementally gain. He's nowhere near gaining enough, and that is the pain he's having to deal with right now, and the fact that as he gradually gains on his arrival for P2, it's not enough time as they make the way into turn number 8. He gets a much better run through 8, and will this be an attempt to move down into 9? No, Fox covers him off once again, but Fox going very deep, and Solotov releases the brakes. He's going to be up the inside here as they make the way into the late apex of 9, side by side as they exit, but it's going to be Fox on the inside of P2 as they make the way through turn number 10, and as they roll their way on through, there's a bit of contact between the two drivers. Solotov is given a small knock and goes off circuit. They're still side by side through 11 into 12 they go. It's Fox on the inside, Solotov on the outside, and can Solotov hold it all the way around the outside to take the inside into 13? He's going to try, he's got himself there as he tries to outbrake his rival into the corner, and in doing so he gets ahead and he covers off Fox, who tries to cut back and forces Fox literally towards the wall as they make the way on to another lap here, but they're still battling down into turn number 1, and you see that Audi just has so much more straight line punch as they head into the braking zone for turn 1, and Fox covers off Solotov. They're literally pulling the car into the inside at the last possible minute there to make Solotov have to brake to the outside, and as they head through 2, it is the case that Fox staying ahead, keeping the championship leader at bay, and Jonas Fox wants that P2. It will be major in terms of his championship credentials, albeit I don't think he's within really arm's reach at this time of the championship leader where things stand, but it is the case of P2 are doing very well in his aspirations as he makes his way through turns 4 and 5 and continues to try and hold off the BMW Sim Racing driver. But the problem is for him, he's still got another 15.5 minutes of this, and the only place where that Audi seems to be stronger than the BMW M4 is down the straights. But now he will have a bit of breathing room given the fact that he does have the long straight here, the long back straight, to just take his mind elsewhere for a brief moment and then refocus and think, right, what do I have to do to keep Solotov at bay? Well, I think what he's got to do is try and find a way to carry some more speed through the sweepers in the latter half of the lap, because that is where Solotov is absolutely demolishing that gap and bringing it down as they head in towards the braking zone this time, and as they do for turn number 8, who will be the leader come the run into 9, where it is Fox still, but you can see Solotov right there with him. But this time I think wary of the fact if he goes up the inside, he'll be made to go on the outside into turn number 10, but he's going to try it. It's Solotov once again. We were here only moments ago, and we do it again as they make the way into turn number 10, but this time will there be contact? No, it is the case that Solotov stays with him, but is a bit more cautious of running fully side by side through the apex, and as they head for 11 and up into 12, Solotov finds himself pinned to the outside. Fox covers him off as they roll the way through, but Solotov there you can see backing out through 12 and tucking in behind for 13, making Fox have to put it a little bit tighter to the apex, trying to compromise Fox's line. But the problem for Solotov there is he can do that all he wants, but Audi's just going to punch away down the straight as they head up towards turn 1. You can see how that gap opens up on the straight as they make the way on to the next lap. So Solotov's got to find a way to get ahead before they get to that final corner and open that gap up. As we look from them to what is the battle for P9, we see Stefan Kraling here, who is behind Oliger, and in fact Alex and Ash has dropped down the order to P10. We haven't quite seen what's happened there, but Ash has been involved in an incident, or it's a double overtake, and also it's the case that Kraling has lost out to his teammate Oliger as they make their way across the line. But Max Oliger now definitely making a movement as he heads up to P8, and well, can he now guard Svirkov in a P7? That will be the question as they roll the way on through. But as they come on down here, in terms of, we hear the Fabinator asking what's the purple lap. Well, the fastest lap is owned by Boris Galifunin right now. Our race leader is a 54.807 as we're to understand it, and well, that's according to our time in tower at the moment, but it may be the case that's not quite accurate, but that is what we've got listed as the fastest lap in this race, is a 54.807 as the drivers continue to make their way on around. Meanwhile, Soldatov here, well, it is the case that he's trying once again to, well, in fact, he's found his way past Forks there, and how has that happened? Let's take a look back. Whereas in the run out to turn number 7, now does Forks get it wrong? Alternatively, does Solotov this time just have enough momentum as they make the way down the straight? Well, it is the case there. You can see Forks leading the pair of them, and in the end, well, Solotov was just close enough to actually slipstream his way past, and well, that is a surprise in the fact that Audi was looking so strong, and as they made the way out towards turn 8, they reversed the order, and it is the case that Jonas Forks has lost out versus Solotov as they head now in to turn number 8, and we return to live pictures. But now it's the case that Forks has got back ahead, so we only cut away for a brief moment, and it is Forks who leads the pair once more as they head to the end of the lap. Well, we won't get a cut back to how the return pass was made, but they are as they were when they went onto this lap, and now they go on to another one with Jonas Forks still staying ahead in P2. But as they head across the line and charge on all the same, it is the case that we do see here Solotov really trying to find a way to gain that position. He wants that P2 to really secure that championship lead going into the season finale, given that a number of his rivals have lost out today and have even had to retire. For example, Anufriev, one of his rivals, has retired from this race and won't be picking up any points. That will become his drop round, which is a major hit to his aspirations. But we do look here from the battle for P2 to what is Vasi Grama right now in P6. As he makes his way down to P3, the reason why he may be a little bit worried right now is because Lukas Virkov is closing gradually. And Svirkov running on 54.995 is his fastest lap, but 55.1 last time around, half a second faster than Vasi Grama by comparison. It is the case he is inching ever closer to the BMW driver in front of him as they make their way through 6 and 7, and as they head down the back straight, it is the case that Lukas Svirkov really now starting to deliver those laps. Vasi Grama is pushing back in return, however, he is currently a 10th up on his previous overall best in this race, but it's Svirkov who's really building that momentum, and you can imagine if he can get close enough, he'll really start to gain on the straights when he's in the tow, roughly about 8 tenths of a second and closing. But of course the tow is a very gradual build, as meanwhile we look back to the battle for P2 here, and Konstantin Solotov has got ahead on the exit of turn number 9, and well, he's ahead for now, but we'll just stay with this battle for the time being to see whether there's a return move from Jonas Forks as they make the way into turn number 12. We ride on board and look backwards from the BMW Sim Racing driver Solotov as they head through 12, and you can see that Forks not able to carry the speed or confidence that Solotov has through the turn 12 corner, but now as they exit out of the final corner and head down towards turn number 1, watch that Audi. You'll see initially they stay about stagnant, and now as he builds up the speed here, he closes gradually as they head down towards the corner, but not gradually. It is the case now he really starts to build up as they get into the higher gears, but not close enough this time as they roll away into turn 1. So Konstantin Solotov has made the move stick for the time being, and if he can get enough of an advantage coming out of turn number 7 to go onto the back straight, he may still be ahead come the run to turn number 8, but we'll have to wait and see as they roll their way into turn number 3. And again, that Audi looking quite hooked up on these lower speed corners. It's the medium speed corners where it does seem to struggle, even with the aerodynamic refinements between the Evo 1 and Evo 2 grade Audi R8. But as they make their way through turn number 6, you can see their understeer for Forks. He just cannot get the car to turn through the corner, and I think that's going to give Solotov all the room he needed, as it is the case that Forks there runs wide, and that will be a track limit invalidation as he makes his way all the way down the straight now. But Jonas Forks has lost out. He's 7 tenths behind, and whilst he's got a lot of speed in that Audi, he's not going to close that 7 tenths by the end of the straight, or if he does, he'll be literally on the back of Solotov by the time they get into turn 8. He won't be able to put it side by side into the braking zone as they make their way into the corner, and Solotov is here to stay in P2 for now. But meanwhile, we jump down to P14 driver Nelson Abramhosa, who is putting pressure on Pitchik here as they make their way through turns 4 and 5, and I think Pitchik recently had made the move for P13. And now Abramhosa is trying to come on back there as they make their way through turns 6 and 7 and onto the back straight. As they make their way down the back straight, you'll see that Audi will fly and start to make its way off into a distance, or at least we would believe it will. But Abramhosa here definitely staying with him in the tow, and Pitchik, I think we worried a little bit about the fact that Aston Martin is gradually getting closer, but as they head towards turn number 8, it's still a long way to go. In fact, Pitchik's got to go defensive here. Abramhosa will have enough length in order to be able to put himself side by side, and as they head past the camera, it is too wide into turn number 8. Abramhosa's going to try and go around the outside. They give one another enough space here. Great respectful racing between the two of them, and the Pitchik defending to the inside into turn number 9 versus the Aston Martin on the outside, and Abramhosa there made to go to the outside. He can't carry it all the way around too wide on the exit of 9. He has to settle back in to the line of stern formation as they make their way into turn number 10, but it was a very valid attempt at a retake as they make their way through turn number 10 and into 11. Aaron Hoster continues to wait for an opportunity, as meanwhile we are hearing that Stefan Hildebrand in the meantime is battling very hard and closely with an Ash right now for what is P11, as our drivers continue to push on round. But in fact, Nash just dropped down the order. I think there's been a mistake, and Aaron Hoster definitely not gaining on pitching as they make their way towards the end of their current lap. But meanwhile here we can see Maxim Komazuk battling with what is a P11 driver Alex Nash as they head down towards turn number 3, and the Benzino driver up the inside here, and he can't quite get it done. He's squeezed to the apex curve there by Nash, and I think he would argue he should have been given more room on the apex, but Nash sealed the door shut. He goes deep in turn number 5, and as a result Komazuk gets the move done as they make their way through 6 and 7. Now will he still be holding on to that position come the run at the end of the back straight, because given the fact it's so long, you can see already Komazuk weaving, trying to break the toe. He knows he's not going to be able to outrun the BMW M4 behind, and then Nash right now chasing him hard as they make their way all the way out to turn 8. They're halfway down the straight. They've still got plenty to go, and ahead of them, that is Hildebrand, who's being given a bit of breathing room here as the battle for P11 rages on, and they finally make it to P8, to turn 8, I should say. And as they make their way into the right-hander, it's going to be Nash trying to go around the outside. Komazuk on the inside, and in the end, Nash goes all the way round, and now Komazuk will try to go back up the inside into turn number 9. They're too wide under braking here as they roll their way through the long right-hander, and it is the case that Nash goes wide, and that will be track limits, and the marbles taken further wide. He understeers off, and in the end Maxim Komazuk gains that P11, but he's made to work very hard for it, and now he's got to try and close down a 2.5 second gap to Hildebrand in P10 to get himself back into the top 10 and try to gain more points to keep his championship aspirations alive as he makes his way on through the final couple of corners of this current lap. But as we look from what is Komazuk in P11 to P3 driver Jonas Fawkes, we can see here it is the case. Our third place driver is gradually falling away from Soldatov, albeit the gap is 0.7 of a second at the moment. He's staying with Soldatov, but it's not enough for him to try and make a counter-attack or return move for that P2 position. And right now I think Fawkes focusing more on just trying to stay as close as possible in case Soldatov makes a mistake, and with only 6 minutes of racing left on the clock. But meanwhile, whilst these two are trying to settle for P2 and P3, in this case that Boris Galifianakis continues to lead this race. He is 6.7 seconds clear, and here is Galifianakis as he makes his way past the of-course machine of what is BEF as they roll their way through turn number 8. He hasn't quite found his way up past the Ferrari yet, but now he does as the Ferrari driver responds to the blue flags, and it is Boris Galifianakis to lose as he rolls his way down through turn number 9. As he heads through the corner, in this case we do look from him back to our battle for P2, and Soldatov here definitely, I think, has cemented this P2. As they roll their way through turn number 10 and in towards 11 very shortly, the BMW Sim Racing driver looking very comfortable at this point, and I think it is the case. Whilst he was struggling at first to make the break on Fawkes, in the end Fawkes just does not have enough anymore to come back at him. But of course, still time remaining on the clock. You never know what can happen as they come through the final corner here once more to come to the end of lap number 23. It's certainly looking as though Soldatov is on course for P2 here today, which will be perfect for him going into the season finale. But as we look from him to Lucas Virkov running P7, it is the case. The Audi R8 driver here still chasing after Vasi Grama, and on that last lap took 0.6 of a second out of our P6 driver, and you can see them both now sharing the same camera shot when they make their way onto the start-finish straight on towards another lap, onto lap number 24, and Virkov has been closing quite aggressively over the last couple of laps as they head on down towards turn number 1. And what can he do? That last lap, it was the case he didn't gain. In fact, he lost 6 tenths, making a mistake there on the lap, and Grama responding. But it is one of the situations right now where both drivers are literally on the limit to try and finish P6. I don't think they're going to be close enough to contest Martin Ulrich for P5, as Ulrich is the best part of 6 seconds up the road from the pair of them in the Bentley. But right now that battle for P6 is inching ever closer, and will it go into a full-blown battle with only what for them is 3 laps remaining in this race, as our leader right now is already a good chunk of the way around this lap. So it will be the case we'll have 2 more laps after this one. As they roll the way around, we've got Clearso, who has a drive-through penalty, and I believe that is either for an incident or for track limit. So, and the Italian driver, after that disastrous moment where he was knocked into the pits backwards by a fellow driver, it is the case the Italian's just not getting a break. But meanwhile, we must look from the battle here for P6 to Alex Nash, who the PG Motors driver here falling backwards from Komazuk as they make their way down the back straight, and Nash definitely having a difficult second half of this race. It's not working out for him, as we hear there is the case of Cluso into the pits for his drive-through penalty, and Steve Taylor here, the JP Motorsport driver, now up to P18, and the American. It is the case, whilst he hasn't been on the pace the majority of the field today, the McLaren 720S driver gaining places gradually and just staying out of trouble, which is sometimes that's all you can do. And well, he's definitely showing that he's avoiding the difficulties that many a driver have faced here at Paul Ricard. As he makes his way through turns 4 and 5 and heads into 6 and 7 shortly, it is the case where you look from other drivers towards the back of the field, back up towards what is our top 5, and in particular to Martin Ulrich here, and we can see the McLeod Racing Team driver, the Dane, just delivering lap after lap, pushing on as he makes his way down towards turn number 1, and as he does so, well, the Bentley driver definitely looking as though he's in a very happy place as he rolls his way under braking into the opening corner and now heads through turn number 2. But as he heads through, it'll be the case, he'll be thinking to himself at this point, a top 5 finish is exactly what he needs for his championship hopes, and well, with so many drivers falling by the wayside on the opening lap, we've still got 21 runners out of our 25 starters, no more retirements, but definitely a lot of drivers find themselves gaining some huge points today here, including Martin Ulrich and also the driver ahead of him, Oliver Geller, as we see here, the Mosquito Motorsport driver making his way through turn 7 in the McLaren 720S and charging down that back straight. But with less than 2 minutes now on the clock, it is the case our race leader, Boris Galafun, well, if you're looking for him, here he is as he makes his way through turn number 8, and as he comes charging on through this time, there'll be one more lap after this. He will take us on to a 26th and final lap of what is this restarted race for round number 6 of the series due to the server crash. But Boris Garifulin definitely now on course, though he is being gradually reeled in by Soldatov and Forks, but it is the case he can afford to be reeled in gradually. He's still got 4 seconds to play with. As he makes his way on around and out of what is turn number 10 and into 11 and now through 12, it is the case we look to Soldatov here, and we can see Soldatov pushing on in that P2 position, albeit with Forks behind him here, and Jonas Forks staying with him. The gap hasn't opened up beyond a second, so whatever Jonas Forks has found to stay with the BMW driver of Konstantin Soldatov, it is the case he's found that time and he's pushing on as we now go on to the final lap of the race. And as they make the way on down, I don't think Forks is going to be able to make a move unless Soldatov gets it wrong somewhere and makes a mistake. But we look from them to Maxim Komazuk, who has found his way past Hildebrand. And how did that happen? Well, we're side by side as we take a look back into turn number 8, and as they made the way through the corner, Stefan Hildebrand there giving the space and backing off the VRL Performance Lamborghini driver there, simply yielding, I think, respecting the fact that he's gained 4 places from his starting position if he loses that P10 to Komazuk. And well, it is the case he wants to be safe there, given what's happened previously through that corner for so many drivers. But Komazuk definitely now up into the top 10 and pushing on after what has been a very difficult race for the number 1 driver, involved in a number of incidents. And as we do return to the live pictures here, it is the case of Komazuk, the Benzino driver, now finds himself running to a P10 finish, albeit it will not be the finish he expected today, given how much pace he was showing. And in the end, it was an early incident which saw his race turn upside down with that drive-through penalty. But then we do look here to Boris Galafun, who is still being reading. In fact, I wonder if Galafun's made a mistake on this lap, because that gap has come down to 2.6 seconds, and you can see that Konstantin Soldatov here really closing on up to Galafun as they make their way into turn number 9. Surely we're not going to have drama to the finish line here, with the BMW Sim Racing driver gaining massively, but I don't think it's going to be enough. I think if he had one more lap, he could consider it, but we are on the final lap, and as they make the way up through turns 10 and 11, we see Galafun here, the Honda NSX driver, just heading into 12. He's got enough space here to take it easy, and one more corner between him and the finish line as he makes his way into turn number 13. And as he rolls out of the corner, here is your winner, ladies and gentlemen, round 6 of the series. It is Boris Garifulin who takes the win in the Honda NSX Evo ahead of Konstantin Soldatov P2, and it is Jonas Forks in P3 completing the podium, and it'll be Oliver Geher from Mosquito Motorsport in the McLaren 720S. The German makes it the best of the rest, P4 in the end, and a brilliant drive from him. And then it will be Martin Ulrich who comes home to complete the top 5 from McLeod Racing Team in the Bentley Continental. The Dane will be pleased with that. Vasily Grammer, meanwhile, in the end holds on to P6. He had enough pace to keep Lukas Virkov at bay, as we see Virkov heading to the timing line there, P7, and it'll be a Max Oliger P8 ahead of his teammate Stefan Kralik from Mosquito Motorsport P9, and then we will have Maxim Komazuk complete the top 10 ahead of Stefan Hildebrand P11. P11. The Viral Performance Drive doing the best he could today, and it'll be Alex and Ash coming home in P12, and then we've got quite a gap to P13, and when he makes his way across that line, it will be Oleg Pichik from Team Bullets Ukraine, who has had a disaster race. He's recovered to P12, but he won't be pleased with how this one has played out, but still he'll take what he can from it, as Nelson Abram-Hoster comes home P13 in the Aston Martin. A good drive from him for Team Abbey Racing, and then a bit further back we have Adrian Piervu here, the PG Motors driver, who's got a 15-second penalty to take. So whilst he is going to finish P14 out on circuit, I do believe it will be the case he'll be demoted quite a bit here. So it will be, in the end, Andrei Kyokan who comes home in P14, and then we will have Andrei Silvescu who comes home P15, and then it will be Piervu who comes home P16 when it's all said and done. Steve Taylor making his way to the line. I don't think he'll gain the place. He may do. It's going to be close, but he'll come home either P16 or 17 as he crosses the line. And then last but not least, on the lead lap, it will be Dustin Bonds who comes home in the end P17, although I think some drivers have already left our timing tower there. It is the case, we've got a bit of confusion. Some drivers have already finished their race, but it looks like Bonds will be coming home P17 unless I've misunderstood. Well, no, he'll be P19 in the end. We've had some clarification there, but that, ladies and gentlemen, is round number 6 of this series at Paul Ricard, and now we must get ready for our post-round interviews with our podium finishers. Don't go anywhere. We'll be 2 to 3 minutes, and we'll be back to hear our thoughts from Gareth Fullin, Soldatov and Forks on what has been a very dramatic night of racing at the French circuit. Alrighty, we are back, ladies and gentlemen, but unfortunately, I'm sorry to say, we won't be bringing you any post-race podium interviews of our drivers. We haven't been able to grab, whether it's Garafulin, Soldatov or Forks, any of the three. They're absolutely exhausted after the race, and completely understandable given the unpredictability of tonight's racing, with the aborted initial race and then having to come back and do that shortened 10-minute qualifying session and then the 50-minute race. But I can imagine that all three of them will be very pleased with their results, particularly Garafulin holding on at the end with the NSX losing its pace in the closing 5 minutes. And Soldatov definitely showing a lot of pace right towards the end of the race. But Jonas Forks as well, a bit of an outsider in terms of contention, but being able to bring that Audi up into P3, finishing there, and that's going to do him very well in his championship hopes, given that he went into tonight in P8. And well, I can imagine that Forks now will be carrying a lot of momentum going into the season finale. But as I say, no post-round interviews as our podium finishers are unavailable. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, it is the case that we'd like to say instead, thank you very much for watching. And if you did enjoy tonight and want to know more about the European Racing Series community, in terms of what we do, the series we run, and everything we stand for, then why not go to our official website? That's the ERS website at www.europeanracingseries.com. Alternatively, if you want to go to our Twitter, it is twitter.com/European Series. Also, a big thank you to our partners and our sponsors for this series, without whom we'd not be able to go racing, and that is both GPORTAL and the SimGrid. But now we look to next week, where we bring the curtain down on the series, indeed season 6 of the series, and that is round number 7, the finale, at the Nürburgring Vidal Grand Prix circuit on Wednesday the 20th of July 2022. It'll be a case that the race will be fast, it'll be furious, and at a circuit where overtaking is in abundance, you can imagine our drivers will be looking to end their championships on a high. And with Soldatov's P2 today, it's the case that he's definitely the firm favourite now to wrap up the championship in a week's time. But could there be a last minute surprise in store, a last twist in the tail? We'll have to wait and find out. But with that, we have been the European Races Series, and I have been your host and commentator, Paul TX141 Walsh. I'll be back next week to bring you the season finale. But until then, ladies and gentlemen, have a fantastic evening. Remember to stay safe, stay smiling, stay well, but most importantly, remember to stay on track. Good night.